Hey everybody, welcome to episode 24 of the Reptile Rejects podcast. It's starting to get up there that I'm losing track on which number we're on, even though I have to check all this stuff all the time. But yeah, no, it's great. This weekend we got David Kelley on, and he keeps a variety of species, so this should be a fantastic show where Dom can ask him some diamond python questions, and I definitely want to ask him about
Oh, yeah.
pancake tortoises and caudates and maybe even some chuckwalla stuff. So there's an endless amount of possibilities we can hit on today. So Dom,
We'll
how are
still
you
try
doing?
to keep it mainly diamond pythons. You know what? Life is good. It's really weird because right now I'm always in my snake room, and usually I wear a little shirt and I have a fan blowing because it's freaking hot in here. And it's like 8 or 9 degrees already. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. Like 7 or 8 degrees lower at night now, and it makes a difference. It's not scorching warm in here anymore, so it's kind of nice. Kind of nice. Not gonna lie. Life is good, animal wise. I don't know if there's really anything new. Now,
any
that's good.
any more animals to move from that baby rack in front of you, or is it almost empty now? Well, it was
No, I
already
still
almost
have
empty.
some. It was already empty. I got my inlands back from Shan that he got them all feeding. So I have technically 3 inlands for sale if anybody's interested. Um, I still have 2 jungles left for sale, and that's honestly about it, which is kind of cool because it's really not a lot of animals left, and I love it that way. Heard some news a bit about the whole green tree python ordering that, the ones that were supposed to come for me that didn't come for me but went to everywhere else in Canada. Um, I think I'm at the third person now that's approached me with some bad news or bad events and
Oh yeah,
losing some animals. It's
Ashley posted that I think one or two people tested them and they tested positive for Nido, but that's
okay. So
but that's
I
like they are from
wasn't gonna
Indo,
say
so
that on.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay,
she posted it on her
oh, did
on
she?
her
Cool.
on her page saying for people to contact her, but like Facebook took down the original post for some dumb reason, even though it
Really?
wasn't technically selling animals. So
Hmm.
I don't
Oh,
know.
that's too
She
bad.
shortened it to "People, please contact me." But yeah, no, I think they're figuring out with Chris Applin and that. But yeah,
Oh,
but it's stuff from Indo, right? Like they can do everything as well as possible, but like stuff happens, right? You keep animals in captivity, and when you keep a large amount of animals in a space, like stuff happens. So nobody's immune to anything really. So it's just you just
well,
got to
I'm
be
glad
aware and
that
quarantine properly.
Ashley posted it because now I can actually talk about it because I wasn't going to say it because I didn't get the okay from the people that reached out to me. But if it came from her, then I can talk about it. So yeah, I've had 2 people now reach out to me to tell me that they've had positive NIDO results and have lost, you know, 1 to 2 of their order already. So it's kind of interesting, and it just shows how like it's not just because it's being spread from one cage to another, from one breeder to another, right? It's coming from the wild. It's coming. Then again, it might have been only 1 or 2 animals, and who knows how they keep them in
Well,
India,
I
right?
think
For all you know,
the green trees are supposed to be captive bred, and these animals, for the most part, probably were. It's hard. You never know, right? They
yeah,
could be
maybe.
buying these animals from another supplier in Indo who might be not as upfront as they should be, kind of thing. I know Chris is pretty upfront with stuff. He has a podcast on MJ's network and is very open about how he's changing stuff at the farm and whatnot. But yeah, like
Yeah.
it could happen to anybody's just normal reptile collection too. So yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that's dealt with, right? Because when you import, you never know what you import, right? And there's a part of me that wonders whose responsibility of it is it if you've sent out to everybody and everybody receives nido positive animals. Like, is it the importer, is it the exporter, or is it just bad luck and there's not much you can do about it, right? Because in the end, like you brought up Ashley, like, is it Ashley's fault? It isn't. I don't think it is,
Yeah,
right? So
she's
who's
just helping people get the animals
she's
from.
moving from A to B, right? So I don't think it's her fault, but it really sucks because it creates a big situation now. That means that however many green trees were brought in on this import order, pretty much every single one has it, and now it's been spread to how many different collections, right?
Well, you can't.
And how
You
does
also like
sorry,
there
go.
was Timors on that and there's some other Python stuff too. So it yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
tricky.
It's you hope that every single person in there actually had a good quarantine,
Yeah,
and they're all stuck with the ethical decision of what do I do, right? Which is just not an easy one at all, and it's a tough one to be in because there's a part of me that's like, well, just keep it in a separate room and raise it and breed it and take care of it, and chances are nothing will ever happen. And there's another part of me that's like, just move it on to someone else and don't keep nidopositive in your collection because you're just taking a risk. So it's a really shitty, tough place to be in. I think I'm more in the camp of I probably would keep the animal, keep it separated, and just have a nido collection, even though I can't even have more than one reptile room. So I'm saying that, knowing that it can't even happen in my situation. But it's a tough place to be, man. Tough place. Yeah. Mike, why don't you tell me a bit what's new with you, and then we'll bring on Dave Kelley, even though he's already in the background, just keeping quiet there.
sounds good. Not too much. I finally posted a couple things up on Kijiji because that's like the only option we got up here. Morph Market's kind of tricky because not too many people right now want to buy stuff out of the country, kind of thing. So like it's doable, totally doable. All the stuff I have is non-CITES, so it's not too hard. It's just a bit of extra cost with the shipping and import export fees. Because I got one pair of Kentucky pines, and then I got a couple female wild rose pastures Pecos that should be ready to go in the new year. As shipping is kind of done now. Like some people, I think like shipping's technically open, but you might as well just wait till the new year, maybe even February, to wait for some slightly warmer days. But yeah, there's not too much there. Everything's information. Put the black milk male down in information because he was in shed, but now everybody's been down for a few weeks and they're all doing good. Room is basically empty except the baby rack and the one Wama python and one Bahama boa in there. So it's not too much to do other than change water and fish tanks because I have like 400 baby catfish still. I need to get those moving too. I don't need that many wood catfish, but yeah, not too much new. Yeah. Oh, and later this month I'll be driving out to Alberta and hanging out with Greg and going down to Tyrone's place and probably record a show one of those Sundays with Tyrone at his shop. So that should be a fun show for all of us. So yeah,
Did you figure out which day we're doing that, or are we going to talk about it
that'll
after?
just be the 28th, normal Sunday.
Okay. So talking about that, I think we should announce it too, so that people will hear it. Because if this goes out live now and in a week from now, December 21st, Mike and I will be doing our holiday show, which is going to be a mishmash of possible different guests jumping on or no one jumping on, but there will be some drinking. It will be a shit show, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be just our fun, relaxed evening. So if anybody wants to join us, um, we'll make it fun. Anyway, it'll be fun for us. So just announcing it,
Yeah.
we'll do it live, and it'll be possibly uncensored. Not that anything's ever censored on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I've already hit up a couple past guests and some people, so yeah, I think it should be good. And then we got some shows already lined up for the new year with I think we're gonna try to get MJ on and Adam on a few separate weekends. Lisa, I think, wants to come on. She might be in the chat there. Actually, we should probably line up Brandon too. Brandon Valentine. He keeps some fun stuff as well. Yeah, so it should be good. Oh, we also got Foddy lined up for a couple weeks into January. So yeah, try to line people up, and also Ryan Young. Ryan Young should be a fun guest from the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, alrighty, David, how are you doing this fine Sunday evening?
Doing all right, a little tired, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. What were you up to this
Yeah,
weekend? You're doing falconry at all now, or is that still too early for that?
Nope, working on that right now. But also just decided to be an absolute moron and stay up until 4 a.m. playing video games like a college kid. I don't know why, and I'm exhausted now. So
okay. I had no idea you did falconry. Is that something you do through the zoo at work, or is that something you do on your own?
I'm just on my own time, just a hunting sport I wanted to get into, and I'm still an apprentice, still learning. So not an expert, not necessarily good at it, but or any stretch of the imagination. But something I'm working on.
That's really cool. So when I worked at our little reptile zoo for about 10 years, we had probably around 15 to 20 birds,
Okay.
and worked with a couple of owls, worked with vultures, worked with the main hawks that we had were ferruginous hawks.
Oh, those are
We
beautiful.
had one, yeah, they're pretty big,
Oh
like they're
yeah.
pretty impressive. I think they fall under the between the category of hawk and eagle because they're big enough to be an eagle but small enough to be a hawk. I'm not sure. You might know better. Had a lot of the little. Worked with kestrels. Worked with. I'm trying to think of a couple of falcons for sure. I'm trying to think. Anyway, we had a good amount, and I really loved it. Like it was something I really enjoyed. But I mean, in our case, it was just all about the weight, keeping them empty, keeping them lower on so that they would fly over the guests and
Mm.
fly to the faraway perches and all that. And I did a good amount of shows, and it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I thought it was really really cool. Um, let's you know what? Let's spend 5 minutes on that if you don't mind, Mike. Like so what do you do for hunting? Like how is it? Do you have one bird? Do you have more? Or I'm purely curious at this point.
So for the United States, to be a falconer, you need to have a sponsor. And for 2 years, you basically report to that person. They help instruct you through it, and kind of teach you the ways of how to build equipment, fly your bird, hunt your bird. And it depends on the state, but generally, the most common that you're allowed to have are either a red-tailed hawk, an American kestrel, a red shoulder hawk, or a Harris hawk, depending on your state. Um, so I flew a kestrel last year, got about 30 starlings, mediocre season, but had a lot of fun. Let him go, and I've got a red tail right now that I'm training down. He was pretty fat when I trapped him, so it's been a little bit getting him going. But hopefully in the next week or two, we'll start getting some flights outside and start getting him ready to go to the field. So
That's really cool. Actually, I had Harris hawks. I flew, and red tail hawks is probably the most common hawk around here. That's the one that we see all the time.
yeah.
So, do you have any birds that are yours, or as an apprentice, you're using other people's birds until you're licensed or authorized to do so?
Oh no, we trap them. So I built a trap. I put some. Basically, it's a bait cage with your desired. It's called a balchatri with your. It's called a balchatri trap. You put your desired bait in there, and there's wired nooses all around it, so the bird cannot come in contact with the bait. Um, and when it comes down, once you find your bird you're going for, it comes down. It grabs the cage. It gets tangled up in the nooses, and then it's your job to run out there, get it, make sure it's acquired safely before it can ding itself up, break its feathers. Obviously, you should be doing this somewhere where a car isn't going to come speeding by and hit it. It needs to be somewhere safe. And then you would train that bird down to the wild. And if it doesn't work out, you just whether your sponsor says, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to keep. I'm going to fail you as an apprentice," or if you just go like, what, I don't like this, you can just fatten that bird back up, let it go back out to the wild, no harm, no foul, and everything just goes back to the way it is. So,
That's so interesting. Like the birds that we acquired were like mainly injured birds, right? Like
okay.
we had a couple of vultures that were like one wing vultures or things like that. A couple of animals with just injuries that took forever. That eventually, like I don't think we ever released anything, or they were pets that were taken from other people that could not be released because they didn't come from around here. But it's pretty cool actually. I loved like flying the birds. I loved playing with them. I loved like it was just such an interesting interaction. And like I imagine that you spend a lot of time getting these wild birds to actually stop flopping on the ground, keep them getting back, and all that kind of stuff. And it's something I haven't done now in honestly, frig man, almost 20 years, and I still remember it to this day. It's something that I truly enjoyed. So very cool hobby, actually. Very cool.
Thank you. I like being outside, and it gets me out in the wintertime. And it's, I don't know, an interesting wildlife experience. So it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. So how about for the people that don't know you, including me? I don't really know you. I think today is the first time we chat. So You want to chat? Maybe give us a quick turnaround of who David Kelley is, and maybe your quick collection, what we're talking about, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sure. So obviously, my name is David Kelley. To everybody listening, I've been a herpetoculturist since I was 15, and I don't mean like my dad had a gecko that I took care of. I mean, I started like saving my allowance, taking care of crickets, buying my own animals, buying my own cages. I don't really know what connected in me. My dad bred leopard geckos when I was a kid, and for whatever reason, that just really stuck with me. So as I got older, I really wanted to get my own animals, breed my own animals. Um, and here we are. I'm 33 now. I'll be 34 in was it 4 months now? And I'm still keeping animals at home. The collections have certainly changed. You know, it started off with a pet Hog Island boa, um, and some crested geckos, and now it's evolved over many different iterations. At one point, I had quite a few very rare and obscure geckos. Um, and then one day I said, you know what? I hate crickets and I don't want to do rare geckos anymore. Um, and it's been mostly salamanders, various snake species. I've had quite a few that have come and gone as I kind of try to cater my tastes and interests. Um, I mainly snake wise have rubber boas, diamond pythons, Arizona green rats. Um, and then I've also got my tortoises, a couple of different species there. Um, so yeah, and it's turned into a whole lifestyle of, my girlfriend is now into, we've been together for 5 years now. She's now getting into herps, even though she's worked with them professionally, having some of her own. She helps me a lot with the tortoises and a couple of our turtle species. Herping is not something I ever thought I want to do, and that all also started from just enjoying keeping animals in captivity. I'm the reverse. As a kid, I wasn't out playing in the creeks. I was putting animals in enclosures that I got from the reptile show. Now I'm spending almost all my free time in the summertime and spring out looking for animals, just kind of seeing what I can find. So a little scatterbrained explanation, but that's kind of who I am.
Awesome. Yeah, you got a ton of cool stuff, and you also keep some newts too, right? Like the was it some of the cyanops stuff and whatnot, and
Yes.
is there some others? Oh, and the rest are at work, so like they're.
Yeah.
But I think I got confused because like once I think you posted caudates on your page, and it kind of looked like it was yours, but I wasn't sure if you just had them in the past and kind of moved them on or not.
Nope, I still have them. I just don't really
Okay.
talk about them too much. They're in that grow up stage where it's like
Oh yeah.
nothing, or like they're interesting to me, but like it's like nothing's really happening with them. No reason to really show
How
them
long
off
did
too
they
much.
take to grow up in your? Because I got one pair. Actually, one of them has 2 feet, so I think one of its feet got bitten off when it was a little juvenile. But yeah, no, they're a pair. They laid eggs this year, but I never cooled them because I got them last September. So I just kind of kept them. I've been keeping them room temperature, which is 65 to 70 something on like hot days here in the summer. Like it might get 75, 80 if it's a really hot day, but for the most part, the nice cool room temperature is perfect for them. But they just laid infertile eggs. None of them were hatched out. So I actually got them in brumation right now, which I'm gonna hopefully do correctly because I've never brumated amphibians before.
My it seems like I don't know 3 years is kind of perfect for them um, to start laying eggs. I mean, obviously animals can go earlier or later depending on that animal's individual growth level or whatnot. But that's when I've normally had success with them anyway.
Yeah, because I think they should be actually about that. Like they're either they're probably about 3 now. I got them when they're probably 2. It's hard to tell. I got them through another person kind of thing, but they're awesome though. Like they just kind of hang out, keep them in like a 30-gallon tank. They just do their thing. You just feed them brine shrimp and bloodworms. I don't even I just because I like feeding more whole foods and if I can. but I think I want to try to. If there's more, like, what do you feed your newts for the most part? Do you feed pellets and stuff, or?
I feed almost exclusively chopped up Canadian night crawlers. Um, I mean, I will dice it down to the size of like a pepper flake. Okay, exaggeration, but I mean, for whatever newt I have, I want to feed night crawlers. It seems like the growth rate is better on them. It's nutritionally largely a complete food source. Obviously, you need to, you can't. Let's see. When you dice up a worm, you can't exactly make sure it's eating all different parts of the worm all the time. But I try to overfeed and kind of let them pick what they want to eat, and then go in there a couple hours later, water change, and remove any of the uneaten food. Um, but protein wise, calcium wise, it's just a really healthy food item for them. And it's one of those items that can't get stuck in gravel very easily or kind of go missing in the tank, so you can kind of keep it really nice and clean. So that's what I like. So I primarily feed that. Occasionally, I'll do, like, if I get some blackworms in, and once I've rinsed them for 2 weeks, if I'm feeding larvae, I will sometimes offer it to some the adults, but I really don't like to if I can help it.
Interesting. Yeah, like I know my friend, she had a bunch of the Spanish rib newts in the past, and that like she had one big female that was a good, like, it was a massive, like 11 inch Spanish rib newt. The thing was huge. It was like 4 times the size of all the other ones she got. But yeah, that thing would just pound like anything you threw in there. She tried to keep like normal community fish in there, and it would, like, you'd slowly see them disappear. It would just take everything, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
I've got a colony of those, and they really are little dumpsters. They are just if you want an easy pet newt that is, I can only describe it as sloppy and doesn't care at all. A Spanish rib newt is the perfect pet newt, even if they do look a little monstrous and ugly when you really look at them up
Oh
close.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. I know Tyrone has like just a tub of them in his shop, but he's in Medicine Hat, so like in the summer it gets like 40 like, so what is it, like probably 80, 90 degrees Fahrenheit in that shop in the summer on hot days, and the adults do fine, but he just never has luck with the babies because
oh yeah,
they usually like to breed a little bit cooler, so he hasn't had luck with that. But yeah, no, his are massive, and they're just in like a pond toad on the ground in the shop.
I'm sure there's
But,
eating everything that goes in there. Yeah.
oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited for those Narugas though, because I got the live brine down with the baby catfish. I'm doing that every single day, so I'm already in the rhythm. So as soon as I think I'm gonna actually bring them out and set them up in like a 15-gallon, and then move and let them kind of have their eggs and everything in there for a couple weeks, and then pull them out, kind of thing, and see if that works better than trying to move eggs from their main tank into 5 gallons and hatching them out. Because I didn't realize that they don't hatch out as quickly as like fish do or other amphibians. Like with the Narugas, it takes like 3 weeks for them to kind of develop and hatch.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're right on the money there. With the amphibians I breed at home, I will literally just go through and like pick out all the eggs. I don't even put them in a cycled tank. I literally throw them in just a tub of clean water. I might put some what's it called, anacris and or alodia and some duckweed in there, just kind of let that naturally kind of clean the water source. And you'll just slowly see them start kind of cleaving and turning into looks like a little bean in the eggs. And then once they begin to finally hatch out, I'll move them into a cycled tank and start. Once their yolk belly is gone, I'll start dicing up blackworms and I'm feeding them that way. Yeah.
So which newts have you bred? Just to get, just to know that.
So at home, I've bred smooth newts, which I really can't consider breeding. You can't stop them. I mean, I hit the Java moss in the tank the other day, and newts just like fell out. Like I did not know I had that many. Smooth newts. What is it? The Danube crested newts, blue swordtail newts, pygmy newts, and my Crocatus should be about ready to go. And my Okinawa newts should be about ready to go too. Yep, that's them. That kind of picture, like right down second row, second from the left, is a pretty typical male. Sorry. Now that was at the end of the first row. That kind of spotted one more over. Yep, that one. They're very small. I'm not going to say that they're the most interesting looking animal, but you can. There's like a guppy tank. They literally will just lay eggs all over the place. They don't eat the babies. The babies are tenacious, and they'll grab a nightcrawler chunk and just rip pieces off of it. It doesn't even seem like they should be possible. And they grow really well. It's just they're really cool little animals.
Oh yeah, those smooth newts are awesome. Which
Yeah.
crested newt is it?
It was
Is it
the
the
Dan. It was the Triturus debrogycus, the Danube crested newt,
Dan? Oh, there we go.
kind of like the wiener dog of newts. Just very strange looking animals.
These guys?
Yeah, that's the ones.
Wow, these things
Pretty
look
cool looking.
insane. I wish there was more newts up here because I know even Tyrone, my buddy, he talks about how was it right before our salamander ban for import export. Like we can keep them depending on your native laws and whatnot. Like I'm not allowed to keep any Tarica, if that's how you
Yep.
pronounce it. Yeah, not allowed to keep any rough skin newts or California newts. But other than that, it's all good. And then salamanders, no ambystoma. So oxalotls are technically illegal, although that's not necessarily heavily enforced. But nobody brings them in anymore. And then plethodon and dicampaton, obviously, because those are protected.
Oh, yeah. And
But yeah,
you did remind me. I forgot. I bred Spanish rib newts and axolotls too, and I could not get rid of the axolotls soon enough. I did not enjoy axolotls. Um, but no,
oh, yeah.
to anybody listening right now, hopefully we haven't lost everybody, since I think you could not find a less interesting part of it seems like herpiculture for people. Everybody does not seem to take the salamanders, but they really are like a small, if you type a crocodile and you smash it with a dart frog, um, and then you add a little bit of like Labrador Retriever in there. Because I mean, they'll get dumb and they just almost kind of like, you walk down there and they'll see you and they'll kind of come up to the front and start like looking for food or begging. Um, the crested newts are ridiculous. I've had them bite each other to where, I mean, there were marks all over their body and they didn't even react. They just kept eating their food like it was no big deal. Um, it just makes a very dynamic little animal that I think a lot of people look over because they're so, what's the word? They're generally just so inexpensive.
Yeah, I think what's cool about the whole newt thing is I only had him when I was younger, but the cool thing was that it makes you have that land and water setup, and it makes you have that naturalistic. Like it's basically you almost have to have it that way, right? And I thought the cage itself, the setup is just really cool and really pretty to look at. So I always thought it was very cool. But on the same token, the cool thing about them is that I now need to take care of a tank that has water and all that thing, and so the cool is a positive and a negative, and it's also why I don't have any because it's all about the care, right? It's snakes are just simple to take care of, right? You add legs, you complicate things. You add legs and water, you even complicate it even more.
Yeah,
So
and you're not wrong. And I'll be honest in saying it on air. I've had to come to a come to Jesus moment where I've got to slim down on my newts because it's getting ridiculous how much time I'm spending down there. I've got 17 aquariums right now, um, which is a lot of fun when you don't have other things to do in life. um,
and a lot of work.
it's a lot of work, and it became a problem where um, I would get the water changes where the tanks, I would siphon out all the food, and then I'd have to fill my water buckets, and then I'd have to dechlorinate them, and then I'm lugging water back and forth from the tanks to the sink. And next thing I know, my entire night's shot, and I'm going to do it again in 2 days. Doing that 3 times a week sort of take a lot of time on top of the tortoises, the snakes, the geckos, falconry, of course, family life. So I'm keeping my absolute favorites and just kind of trying to make it a little more manageable. I will say it was a consequence of when I got into newts. It was sort of at the period where the interstate transport ban had been temporarily lifted. So people were like, "Oh my God, it's our chance! Let's get newts." So I kind of was like, "I'm going to get every newt I can in case this gets reinstated," um, and it didn't. As a matter of fact, it was defeated in court, and it is no longer in place. So it was like, oh, like I've got what I want. I found what I liked, and it's now reached an unsustainable level. So, animals aren't dying, nothing's sick, but it's like I'm not having fun with this, and I think it's time to make it fun again. So. That is my lesson learned, and that is my advice to everybody. Don't go crazy with aquatic setups. Sooner or later, you will regret it.
I could see that. So, just by curiosity, you've named a lot of different animals. Do you have one big room? Do you have one basement? Are you separated in multiple rooms? I'm just trying to figure out how let's say your reptile headquarters in your house works with the different varieties. Because you've got aquatic, you've got species that need cold, you've got species that need warm. How does it work?
Sure. So we do have 2 rooms. We have a room upstairs for the chuckwallas, the tortoises, and a couple of my African velvet geckos. That stays fairly warm. It's a guest room that we weren't using, so we turned it into like a half tropical plant room for my girlfriend and her plants, and then half tortoise, half gecko for me. And then the basement is the largest section. That is where all my cold weather species or temperate species are. So down there, we've got the spotted turtles, all the salamanders, the rubber boas, the diamond pythons, the Arizona green rats. Let's see. And then out back, we've got the marginated tortoises, the Russian tortoises. And then we've got a couple miscellaneous things in the house. We have a yellow mud turtle in our bedroom. That's sort of just like the house, the pet reptile, so to speak, out of all of them. So yeah, it's a little crazy, but we make it work here.
That's pretty fun. I know with I got like 4 or 5 fish tanks now going, just because like I got one big fish tank, then I got the newt tank, then I'm raising up all these catfish. There's a bunch, so yeah, it's definitely a bit of work. It takes a couple hours every Sunday to do a water change on everything, and then there's just that daily work of especially raising stuff.
Yeah.
You got to feed them, like feeding babies daily, kind of thing. And if they're really dirty, well, you got to clean them that day. It's just like going through, and with the ring pythons, they're something that you gotta check their water every day, make sure they haven't pooped in their water bowl, because then you gotta give them a new one, kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of this stuff kind of falls into that. You can only take on too much that requires that daily cleaning, especially with a busy work schedule. So yeah, that's
Exactly.
definitely tough. So with keeping everything downstairs in your basement, do you run into humidity issues with the centicollis being down there with all the aquariums going and all that?
Yeah. So like we talked before I came on, I had sabox for a couple of years, and I really liked my sabox. And then being an unfinished basement in an old house, turns out when you get catastrophic rains and flooding for a year, suddenly your sabox don't really like it too much when the humidity spikes. So I did have quite a bit of a problem this year where I was having awful humidity spikes. Thankfully, the Senecolis seemed to do just fine. I didn't have a single problem with the Senecolis. I've also turned those tubs into like a wiffle ball. There is so much ventilation. Like, I do not want a single bit of moisture in there that they can't get from their humidity hide. But the Sabox, on the other hand, good night. Like, their tubs were getting to like 90% humidity, and I just kept adding more ventilation and more ventilation and more ventilation. And I brought them upstairs into our tortoise room, and they did fine there. And that's when it became what's more important, the tortoises and the chuckwallas or the saboks? Because the saboks were supposed to be in the basement in the Senecolis area, and unfortunately, I moved them on because I really like chuckwallas and tortoises more than I do saboks. Sorry, saboks, but yeah, no, that is something that I have to keep an eye on down there. Thankfully, in the wintertime, with how cold and dry it gets here, when I open up all the windows, all that excess moisture just sort of gets pulled right out. It hadn't really been a problem until, again, the past couple of years, we've had some pretty crazy rains. So that is something that I'm having to kind of play around with and tweak and make sure everybody's getting the proper moisture gradient per species.
Yeah, I think that's something we all have to do sometimes, right? You can want to keep anything you want, but you got to be able to live within the category or whatever your room setup is, right?
Yep.
Like if I couldn't keep a desert species in here or things like that, right? Like if you have one room, that room is set up for only specific animals. And at one point, you just got to decide, yes, it works or no, it doesn't, right? Like and I totally get you. So, and in my case, I'm trying to make diamond pythons work in this room, which is not the ideal room for diamond pythons, which is going to be my segue into the next animals we'll talk to. Unless Michael wants to talk more about something else, are you good to go in diamonds?
Well, maybe we can maybe hit more on the Senticolis and maybe the rubber bow is just a touch, and then we can spend like a whole ton of time on the diamonds. Just
I'll give you 5 more minutes. Go for it, Mike.
Well,
so
the good
what,
news
what made you get into the Senticolis, or was it just like you went herping to Arizona and then you kind of fell in love with them, or was it just like those looked like something neat and cool and different kind of thing? Like what caused that?
No, it was talking to Casey Lazick and like kind of learning more about just how he takes care of them. And you've always heard about Arizona green rats and how like I don't want to say they've got like a mythological status in herpetoculture. That's too much, but like there's sort of just like a status around them that there's something cool. And talking to Casey, I was like, holy crap, these are like the diamond pythons of colubrids. I mean, they're taking these nice, cool temps at the nighttime, but they're coming out and basking during the daytime still. They're just this beautiful coloration. They're not too big, they're not too small. Um, and getting to go down to Arizona this past year and kind of seeing where you can find them, the habitat's beautiful, and that shouldn't play a key into why you get an animal, but oh man, when I like go to the habitat and can see it, it just kind of adds a little bit of an extra like oomph to like my want. Um, so yeah, I got a 2.2 from Casey a couple years ago, and I'm raising them slow, kind of like he told me to, like a diamond python, basically. Um, and not much to report right now. We're just still in the grow up phase, but I really, really like those snakes, and um, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with them because just I don't know. They seem, I don't want to say hardy because I'm going to say that and then I'm going to have like 10 people message me and go like, well, I find that they're really hard. But for me, they've just done well. They eat well. They're not picky once you get them going. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about them that I dig.
Oh yeah. I know we had Bill Hughes on for our fourth show, and we got him to talk a bit about him, and because I remember I've re-listened to his NPR episode from like 10 years ago multiple times. Because in that he talks about going herping for them kind of every year and taking people out to go look for them, and he's bred them over the years because I think he's one of the main people that was kind of breeding them in the U.S. for many years, and now he's pivoted to just the Baja rat snakes, which I know some people consider those like really hard, but he thinks they're the easiest thing, probably because he lives in Vegas. But then
Oh yeah,
he said like the San Nicolas have kind of, I don't think they were necessarily super hard, but I think he just found the Bajas a little easier kind of thing, and he's had some issues with the San Nicolas over time. And then I think he also mentioned that the Subocs were a bit tougher for him, which I kind of find funny because like you got like I'm here in the Pacific Northwest where like we do get like right now it is kind of raining like every day, but I think the snake room still, even with a couple fish tanks going in it, that I'm gonna just move out of there. Like I do the Swiss cheese thing too with those guys, and try to keep it as like I turn the PVC cages into Swiss cheese almost. Like that's where I went. I was like, this feels weird, and then I have a fan going in the summer when it gets really hot, and right now I have a heater going which blows a fan, so there's a little bit of movement, so I'm hoping for that. I'm almost more worried about them being in brumation in the garage where it's a bit more stale and just cool and wet. That maybe that's why I had issues losing one male a couple of years ago, but the other three have been pretty good, so I'll probably just not go too long with the brumation to avoid that. But yeah, it's funny how keepers like that keep these for a long time have find different quirks with each species, and I think it really does depend on where they live. But it's really funny when Rob Nemo and Trumbauer, who live in Florida, are successfully keeping subox and stuff like really well, and it's just weird thinking about that when it's really muggy in Florida, and they're able to do it really well. Maybe just inside their house it's a lot more dry or something, or maybe because they often build cages out of wood and keep them on pine or something that really helps draw the humidity out. But it's really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I think there's just certain species that click with people. Like I don't know, I don't know how to explain it, but it just seems like no matter like where they're living or like what they're doing, just somehow their care, what they're doing, their observational skills, it just they connect, and it is on. And it kind of infuriated me with the subox because I was so stoked for those things. Like I was like on cloud nine, and you're right. Once I got them out of the basement and here where it was much drier, everything was smooth sailing. Then it just became a space issue, and then it became disappointing. But yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. I love my subox because the adults they every time we walk in the room, just like the pine snake, because I got some Kentucky pines, they just come out to the front of the cage, kind of start cruising around. They'll be all hiding, and then they kind of come out and look at you, whether they want you to feed them or they kind of just want to come out and cruise around. It's really interesting how like almost intelligent they are, but they have like the dumb look on their face, so it's pretty funny. Although as they get bigger, like their eyes kind of suit their head more better. Like the male's getting big. I got him from Smitty, and he's probably a 2019, 2018 animal. And he's good 4 and a bit feet now, I think. I like pulled him out for brumation. I'm like, wow, you're actually getting like a good size. Because when I got him, he was, I don't know, 3.5 feet, like not too big, but maybe try to feed him a little less next year.
Yep. We went to West Texas this summer for fun. That was my vacation for the year, and we found several saboks. And even if I can't keep them, like that was an amazing experience. On Black Cap, we found a gargantuan male. Like I did not know saboks could get that big. You don't see them in captivity that big very often, and he just had battle scars all over him. No ticks, which I found interesting, but man, that was like it was 3 a.m. I think it was in the late hours. We were sleepy. We had a long drive back, and that was like the second wind of like, okay, let's keep going. We're gonna find more. But yeah,
How
no.
hot was it there? I've heard Black Gap can be like 100 degrees at midnight, kind of thing sometimes.
Oh yeah, I think it was like 90 degrees at 3 a.m. It was an unbearably warm night. It sucked. Like
Wow.
you walked outside and you just felt like you wanted to like die. At least I did anyway. I was, but maybe other people find it comfortable. But
Wow, that's super cool. I really want to get out to West Texas. I see Smitty and Phil and Rob Stone and that get to go out there, and it just really makes me want to go out there, like sometime in the near future, hopefully.
yeah, I don't want to keep Dom from Diamond Python talk, but I'll
Yeah,
end
we
it
can.
with saying, end it with saying, we got what was it 3 or 4 saboks, a DOR Alterna, some banded geckos, lots of different species. Very, very cool trip. And I think if you're a herper, no matter where you're from, it is like a rite of passage. You have to do it at some point. So
Awesome. That's so cool. Maybe we can hit on it a bit more later, but yeah.
sure,
Okay,
yeah.
Dom, we can hit on diamond pythons for you.
You sure? Am I allowed to go?
Yeah, hit me up. Let's go.
All right, let's start with the basics. Let's start with what's your collection of diamonds? How many do you have? And let's go with tell me about them, like lineage, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So I've got 3.2 adults right now. Um, let's see. And then in the 2023 batch, I kept 2.3 out of that. And then I've kept 3.3 from the latest group. So I'm trying to put together a nice genetically diverse collection. Um, I'd say my main focus is the preservation of certain bloodlines. That's just my thing. I know everybody else has different, reasons for breeding certain species. I think it's fascinating to be able to look at where these animals came from. I can track them all back to the parent generation, which I find, again, that's kind of what I geek out about. And now we're at the point where uh, I am crossing the different bloodlines to kind of maintain a positive genetic structure, particularly with the Lazic bloodline animals. That I've This is not a bragging, right? Because it's disappointing. Sadly, I have the last known pure Lazic diamond python male. Um, I've been breeding him to. I bred him to a San Diego Zoo female a couple years ago. I bred him to a Valle bloodline female this year, and my plan is to breed those two sets of offspring together, and eventually breed them back to him for one generation to kind of just increase um, uh, his genetic markers in the population before then interbreeding them back out to animals they aren't directly related to from my other San Diego Zoo and Valle animals. I know that's kind of been what's the word I'm looking for? A large jumble of nonsense, but that's really what I'm trying to put together right now.
Makes complete sense to me. Is there any females left of Lazic, or is that the male's the only one?
So it's the only one that I can track, and I think that's like I don't know of anybody that has one. Um,
Okay.
if somebody said they had one, it's not that I wouldn't believe them. It's that I just know
Have
the
you
history
reached
of.
out to Nick? Nick might
Yeah,
know. He knows.
yeah. I haven't, and unfortunately, I've been breeding them. This is the second year now, and nobody's ever reached out to me with
Hmm.
any sort of other female. And then the other thing is, I'm so paranoid about kind of diseases now. Almost be afraid to bring another animal in. So my collection's kind of closed, so to speak. Which is also why I'm kind of interbreeding the different bloodlines. Is I want to create as much of a self-sustaining um, population as I can. I know eventually I'll have to probably acquire another animal or two, but I'm trying to do as much as I can without it. So
Yeah, totally makes sense. So, just so I get it, is your goal more to breed the same lineage together right now, or is that what you've been doing and now you're at the point where you're crossing lineages?
a bit of
Is
both.
that what I'm getting?
I want to
A
do
bit of
I
both.
want to do both. I want to keep the bloodlines as I want to offer people the ability to buy a pure Valle animal or a pure San Diego, obviously not a pure Lazic, but at least as much Lazic as I can make. And then I want people to be able to say, well, I want a Lazic Valle, I want a Lazic San Diego, I want a Valle San Diego, and be able to offer that. Um,
Yeah.
so
See, for me, I wouldn't care if I've got one that was half Lazic, let's say 50% Lazic, 50% San Diego. I'd be like, amazing. You know what? As long as all the lineage tells me, as best of my knowledge or everybody's knowledge, that it is pure, to me, that's enough. Um, don't get me wrong. If I had two San Diego Zoo that were 100%, and I'd be like, that would be cool. But as long as they've got no question marks on any of the parental stocks or going as far up as you can, to me that counts and that's good enough for me. But everybody's different, right? I find it kind of interesting. So you've got 3.2 adults, and let me get this straight, about maybe give or take 10 or 12 hold back babies from previous clutch. Is that correct?
yep, that's it.
Okay. So how do you keep them?
So the adults, I'll be honest, I do not keep them in very large enclosures because they're not very large snakes. My largest female is maybe 6 foot, and I've just got her in a 3 by 2 by 2. Um, they're boaphile enclosures that I modified by cutting off the top and then using very thick. What's the word I'm looking? I forget what type of wire, what the technical term is, but basically I made screen lids for them to be able to use heat lamps. Once an animal is big enough to outgrow the shoebox that I raise it in as a baby, it's into an enclosure with a heat lamp. That is my preferred heat source. I do not like heat tape. I do not like rack systems for diamonds once they're adults. Um, and their first year, I don't worry too much about any sort of what's the word? I don't worry too much about a night drop. I want them to have exposure to those cool temperatures on the ambient side, but I don't want them necessarily dropping down to the 40s like the adults at night. Once they're past that baby stage, once they're eating reliably, they're out of that tub. Um, I'm putting them in part of my basement that's going to get into the 50s at night and kind of expose them to that first winter. Um, where I do not.
So just to confirm, so basically anything that is their first winter, every single baby is their first winter. There's no night drop. There's no cooling whatsoever. Only on the second winter they go through everything just like any other animals, right?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't explain it well. I do allow the ambient to cool in the tubs, but I don't necessarily I don't push for a hard cool. If it goes down to 60 at night in the wintertime in those tubs, that's really all I care about. I don't want it going lower than that. So I still want them eating and growing that first year. Um, I know guys that have treated them like a mountain king, where they hatch them out and they basically overwinter them, and then start feeding them in the springtime. I don't necessarily like that. I kind of want to get them past that initial stage, and I almost think a snake that small and a fairly I mean, it's not temperate and for the most of their range, it's subtropical. So you've got to think that there's still a decent amount of time, daylight and warmth that those babies can get out there and snatch little lizards or whatever they're eating at that time of the year. So I kind of just treat them like a typical carpet python their first year that might get slightly cooler at night. And I don't do any sort of dramatic cooling until the second year. So my holdbacks from 2023 are just now starting to get their first big winter where like I just temp gun down there tonight and they're sitting at 58 degrees on sort of one of the more interior walls. Whereas the adults, I'll put a picture up on Instagram later. It's my yearly, don't worry, diamond pythons are hardier than you think post that I like to make. But there was a female hunting at 47 degrees on the cold side of the basement. So that's kind of the gamut of temperatures I run.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same line of thinking as you. Is the first winter or whatever age bracket you want. Like, let's say they hatch out in May, June, whatever month it is. The winter that comes after, I'm gonna keep them in the shoebox. I'm gonna keep a hotspot on the entire year with no cooling, and those are the only animals that I will feed throughout that winter. As soon as you're past that 1 year stage or the second winter, those animals are all going through cooling. They're all stopping to eat during the whole winter. So I want to kind of go through with the whole how you cool your room setup, like temperature wise and all that. But the first thing that clicked is that you're already at 58 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might, so I'd love for you to go down to how you got to 58 right now, because I'm not even close to those temperatures. I think I'm at like 74 or 72 right now, and it's going to take me a while to get there. So I'd love to know how you work and for cooling, and might as well have the how do you breed your diamond talk, because the temperatures seem really early for me, but everybody breeds differently, right? So I'm curious to go down that path.
So I around well, it's been weird here in Wichita the past couple of years because our winters have just been and fall has been so delayed. But generally, November, I open up all my basement windows. I shut off all the vents that are pumping heat into the house, and whatever it gets to at night from the windows, the breeze coming through, that is what we're getting to. Um, so that is just natural cooling with our kind of natural winter cycle down here. Um, so the most important thing when you're cooling the diamonds is that they always have a hot spot, 8 hours a day. that hotspot's kicking on. It's 95 degrees. They're coming out, and they are, well, 95, 100. I let it get warm since it's isolated. And I want it to generally be an enclosure that is not holding in too much heat. So I've got a very small female that lives in a very small male. They both have a 40-gallon breeder slide top. They are not big animals. It's got great ventilation. It does not hold heat in. I've got some, depending on the enclosure, I've got some slate that I put underneath the basking light, or just a brick that they can kind of climb onto that's going to retain some of that warmth as well. So it's going to be warming from both the bottom and the top. And generally they're coming out and they are warming themselves up for those first couple hours of the day. And then you'll slowly just see them kind of start retracting to their hide boxes, which I guess you could say my mentor with diamond pythons, Josh Easter, had told me about, which is just give every diamond a nest box, not even the males, and just they're going to go in there and they're going to get nice and comfortable and they're going to keep themselves warm in there. You're not necessarily, and by nest box, I just mean it's peat moss, sphagnum moss, kind of all mixed up together. It's a place for them to go that might have a little bit more humidity if they need it as well. And largely, I leave them alone from November to March. I'm making sure they've got water. I'm making sure the light bulbs are working. They've got a basking spot, and so long as everything's looking good, I leave them be. And then once we start to get that warm up in the spring, and this is kind of the detriment to the way I do things, is because I'm just using the natural temperatures. I'm not relying on like like any sort of artificial heating for my basement or artificial cooling for my basement. I'm at the mercy of the weather. So like last year's weather sucked. Like our spring just never really came. And my animals, when a diamond breeds, like they mean business. When you pair them up and like the female cycling, the male is going at it. Like the he will grab the female, they will tail wrap, and they're going to be breeding for anywhere from 2 to 12 hours, depending on like how serious they are. And last year, I just did not see that, where I'd see copulation, but it'd be quick or it'd be just kind of half-hearted. So that's something I need to work on, is trying to find a way to define the seasons better. But assuming we have a normal season here, generally by late February, early March is when things start to warm up, and I'll start giving animals their first meals for the year. And generally, the males will kind of tell you when it's time to get pairing, because even if they're nowhere near a female, they can still smell them enough that they are just like banging up against the glass trying to get to them. And that was a problem last year, is I never had that kind of crazy like male drive that I saw. And even though I got some clutches, I was kind of biting my fingernails for a little bit because it didn't seem right. And I know a guy who's been breeding diamonds for a very, very long time, and last year was the first year he did not produce a clutch. So it was kind of across the board, it seemed like, with a lot of the people in the U.S. breeding diamonds. Then, generally, once the copulation's done and over with, which it can be pretty quick, especially when it's that aggressive breeding where the male grabs the female and does not let go, you're basically done. I mean, if you've gotten the timing right, like there is no further pairing needed. The male just starts ignoring the female, and then I remove them and we're done. I do not pair the same male up with a different female. I do not run multiple males through one female. It's sort of whatever pairing I've thought about that year, that's the pairing I'm doing. Once an animal's introduced to a female, there is no going back. I don't want to muddy the bloodlines up. And I know, people can argue sperm retention. We're finding more and more that herps can retain sperm from previous copulation events for many, many years on end. I'm just doing my part to try to reduce any other factors in that by only pairing one set of animals up per year. Generally, then the females will lay early summer for me, and then mine are generally hatching after the typical 60-day incubation. It's pretty textbook carpet python incubation, nothing crazy, nothing special. And they're generally hatching out in August. And after that comes the fun part of getting them started. And
let's stop you before we get to the baby. So just a quick couple of questions. So number one, obviously you stop feeding them for a period where you keep the heat on, right? I'm just going to assume, let's say all of October you're doing that, or all of November, whichever. You probably have a period. Then, if I'm understanding right, you might be going from regular temperatures at night to instant night drop if it's cold that day, right? So you have no gradual getting these animals used to going to the cold. You're just at the mercy of outside. Is that correct? And you've never had any issue?
So it is from the mercy of outside, but I mean, being an in-ground kind of basement, it's not like it's going from 60 degrees to 30 degrees at night or anything like that. It's more of just as the nights begin to drop, it'll go generally from like 60, 65, 65, 60, and then maybe one night it goes to 50, and then maybe it'll go back up to 58 that night. And then once the season kind of gets down into where it's more consistent, it just kind of generally stays at a range that isn't fluctuating too much. And I really wish I could explain it better than that. But no, I have not had issues. And really what it comes down to is making sure they've got enough of a basking spot during the daytime to be able to...
I think it's cool. No, you explained it well. I'm just trying to gather up, right? Because you talk to everyone, everybody does it slightly different. Like I can tell you, I'm like to the dot. Like I'm like every week we drop 3 degrees at night, and I keep going all the way down, and then I'm going to get in the 50s or the high 50s, and I'll do 1 or 2 really cold nights, and then I'm going to slowly bring them back up, right? And that's the way I've done it always. And I'm like, I would never leave it up to the outside. I'd never that's way too much gambling. To me, in my head, it's all like a calculated thing, right? So that's how I work. And I find it cool that everybody's got their own recipe, and obviously it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I wanted to ask is, you're talking about pairing. When are you putting the males and the females together in that whole cycle? At what point?
So generally it's it's going to depend on the year, but generally it's right after they've had their first couple feeds after they come out of the cooling. So it'll be somewhere in March, somewhere in April at the latest. And I'll pair them up kind of overnight and then put the male back. I don't like to do that extended, just leave them together and kind of let them figure it out thing. In years past, generally, if a pair was going, they were going. I cannot stress enough just how like unsubtle they are when they are really like interested in breeding, because you won't be able to walk away before they're already locked up. And that's why last year was nerve-wracking, because I didn't see that behavior. And I did kind of break my rule of only doing 24-hour pairings, and I kind of left them together for longer, and I didn't see a benefit in that. So it didn't seem to increase the chances of copulation. It just seemed they got lazy. And I'm going to go back to sticking with just pairing for 24 hours, maybe giving it a day, pairing them back up, removing the male again, and kind of keeping those intermittent pairings.
Man, that's crazy. So I'm just gonna kind of rephrase what you said, just to see if I got it right. So you're telling me that you're cooling your animals all the way down, you bring them all the way back up, you feed them 2 or 3 times, then you pair. Is that right?
Yep.
So that means you're pairing so far in. Like I would have paired like 3-4 month advance. Like I'm pairing in, I'd say by Christmas I'm putting pairs together right now. I'm not going to do the diamonds, but I'm going to do all the carpets. I'm going to do even the inlands, and kind of the diamonds. I was planning on maybe waiting a month further in, so that I would pair by the time they're to the coldest or just starting to warm up. Like that's where in my head I'm pairing. But you're pairing.
But when did your inlands
even much later
drop eggs and ovulate though? Like how far into
it? The inlands probably dropped one of the last carpet clutch. So like closer to the end, but I bred him like in between. I brought him down to 62, 64. I couldn't go lower, so it was either going to work or wasn't, right? But it just still blows my mind on your diamonds, because you're going. I was always under the impression of starting to pair as you're warming up. So
Yeah, so
sorry, go ahead.
that is when I'm pairing, when I'm warming up. So they cool from November to March every year, and I feed them 1 or 2 times, and then boom, they're paired together. The females begin to kind of develop pretty quickly after the warm up period, being those kind of obligate spring breeders. So
I think it's just as a school. I would have done it way earlier, and now that I'm listening to this, I'm thinking maybe I should cool them down longer. Maybe I should take my time more. Maybe I'm just too feisty to put them together in the hope of getting a lock, right? So, but yeah, that's and again, I've never done true spring breeders yet. I've only done winter just because my room doesn't work for winter breeders. So it's really interesting to hear. Okay, so any other questions before we go into incubation, Mike?
Well, I just wanted to say my room's probably more like David's, where it's a lot cooler. Like you're only just getting down to 72, 74. Honestly, most of the year, my room every night drops down to, in the summer, maybe it'll stay in the low 70s, but right now my room probably drops down to 68 to 65 if it's a really cool night. And then I turn the heater back on and it gets up to 75 during the day. And I'm not too worried about it, kind of thing. The warmer stuff that I keep in racks, I kind of set that hot spot a bit warmer. It always has a hot spot at night and that, but the colubrids, I'm not too worried, and I don't seem to get any regurges with it. But yeah, I'm not as worried with my temperature. And then with the stuff in my bedroom, like that's 65 degrees to 68 degrees in that room all the time. But I have heat panels running in those cages that are set at like 80, 85. Actually, I would set them lower because of how cold the room is, because I know that temperature is like, because it's that probe is kind of stuck to the back wall, so I know it's kind of going to be cooler, so I try not to overheat them too much. But yeah, I find it's just interesting how that kind of works, but how successful you are, Dominic, with keeping that more kind of to the T temperatures with the carpets you have. Like they seem to do perfect for you. Like you have tons of success.
It works perfect for carpets, right? It works perfect for, well, there's not one carpet I haven't been able to breed in this temperature, right? So it works. Now the question is, going back to spring breeders. So to give you an idea of what I'm planning on doing, because my diamonds are ready, is I'm going to bring them all the way down to 64. Then I'm shipping them to the Shan Melanson, which basically has the identical collection. We move snakes around, so there's no quarantine. Our collection's identical, and there's so much movement and he can get it all the way down to 50. So he'll keep my snakes. I bring them all the way down to 50 for maybe another month or so, and then start bringing them back up. And when they're around 60, I'm like, you're not pairing them because I don't want you to take the credit. I just want you to cool them down a bit, and then you give them back to me, right? So, but only because I need to go down that extra 15 degrees so I'm planning on shipping them to his house for about a month and a half. But now that you're saying it that way, I'm basically going to tell him you're not putting those fucking snakes together. You're keeping them apart the entire time. So that once they get back here, I just started warming up, so they're ready to go together. So that's my idea in my head of how I'm going to do it, because I have a way to get cold in my room. Just my wife won't let me, and I've said it a couple of times. I have a cold storage room right beside that is full cement walls that goes down to about 30 at night. So it's freaking cold in there. Like, I could get the cold. All it is a double cement wall. Like I have a cement wall to my room. The wall right behind me is a cement wall. But behind that is a cold storage room with another cement wall. So technically, I'm not drilling outside. I'm just drilling.
Yeah, you're kind of messing up that foundation a little bit. Your home inspector might not be too happy.
All I want is to just put a 4-inch hole in that wall, just low. She'll never notice it, man. Like all our wine is in that room behind and all that shit. There's food. There's like, it would be just the back of a wall that she never goes into because it's always me picking everything. She would never know, but I can't do it. But anyway, the whole point is I could get that cold in any cages I want. It would be super simple. It's been 2 years that I've been fighting for that little hole in the wall. Let's just say there is no hole in that wall yet. So this year I'm shipping them off to get that cold temperature and it's minus 30 degrees Celsius at night here, so in the middle of winter. So it's not like if I can't get those temperature, which I have no idea what that is in Celsius, but minus 70. I have no idea what's
Probably
minus
not
30.
that low. I think there's a point where it crosses that we are colder than they are, but
All right,
Yeah.
that's
it's
pretty
cold, so
freaking cold.
we have access to cold, no problem, right? And the cold storage room behind me, the lowest it goes is it goes to 1 degree, so just like basically freezing level, right? Just above freezing. So like I have all, and what's freezing? 30 Celsius, 30 Fahrenheit. I mean, 33 Fahrenheit. Is that
I
the
think it's
freezing number?
30, 32, something like that.
Yeah, so it gets
Yeah.
to almost that temperature. So really, I'd have access to all the cold, but yeah, anyway, just to say, like, that's where my brain's going and how I'm going to do it. So then I probably would do it as soon as I start warming them up. I'd bring them here, then I would pair them. But in my head, I feel like I would pair them and leave them together. Only because I've had a lot more success keeping animals together for a long time than separating. Because if they're not interested, I separate them when they're not interested. But if they're interested, they're going to stay together as long as they're interested. Like if they're breeding, I'll leave them for a week or two. Thank you, 32 Savannah. There you go. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm just blabbing at this
But
No,
point. But
David, with
no.
your diamonds, even when you get them down cold, or you're still giving them a short hot spot during the day, right? Or no? Because
Sorry, can you repeat? Can you repeat that? It broke up there for a second. I'm sorry.
oh, no worries. During the day, I mean, when during the coldest part of the year, you're still giving them like a short hot spot.
Oh yeah, no, they have a hot spot year round. During the summertime, it's going to be 13 hours. I'm going to try to match what it is outside. During the wintertime, it is 8 hours of just the exact same basking temperature, 95 to 100 degrees, and that's essential. If you don't provide that, you will eventually have a sick or dying diamond python. Um,
I
so that and that's why I like the heat lamps is because they are efficient. They might not be the prettiest. They might not be like I know like radiant heat panels are very popular and I love them for the safety. But when it comes to the efficiency of trying to get that animal as warm as it needs to be within a couple hour span, you cannot beat a light bulb or like what Arcadia's deep heat emitters. I've had a lot of success with those too. Um, but yeah, that's essential to it. Um,
so I remember Rob Stone pointing out to people that Stan Cheris's diamond python breeding method was successful because he lived in Colorado and put them in the garage where Colorado will get the spikes, kind of like Alberta gets spikes too. In Calgary, they get the Chinooks that one day it's -20, the next day it's +30 within 8 hours. Right, it heats up during the day and then cools down, and that's why that was successful. But if you live in Philadelphia and it just stays cold for 4 months at really cold temperatures, the diamonds don't do too well, and people were like, "Oh, he's trying to fake us out," right? So, got to remember to warm the animals up during the day, even no matter what the species is, except for like colubras that are actually cool the whole time. Although I think, like thinking about black milk snake, kind of where they're from, I would assume they're almost on the same level where they probably get chilly at night, and probably some days are pretty chilly if it's like a cold, slightly cooler, rainy day in the Panama or Costa Rica. But I think they probably still get those like hot spots during the day, and then they're dropping down. So I think even though black milks do just fine cooling for 3 4 months in the winter, I think they could be bred with that same exact method as well.
yeah, I think it's something that it's going to be a lot of fun for people to play around with going forward because not to detract from diamond python talk, but I do wonder how much if we start playing around with other species, we're going to find that there are reptiles that we've traditionally cooled from just that, throw them into the wine cooler or just putting them in your garage that actually would do even better by providing them a basking or warm opportunity during the daytime. I think we're finding that with Senecolis, for example, that's pretty handy for them, and it makes sense. You go up in those mountains during the wintertime, it still gets nice and toasty on those rocks, and there's rattlesnakes and that's where. When Gary Valle started having a lot of success with diamond pythons, that's where he kind of picked that up. He would watch the red diamond rattlesnakes down in California, bass during the wintertime. And when he started to develop his husbandry method for his original pair, he was like, that's something to consider. I'm going to try it with these snakes, and it worked. And I think there are more species out there that it will benefit, and we're just kind of I think we're going to find out in the next couple decades or so that more animals will do better with it. So.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. But the other thing to keep in mind too is that the more generations we get into, I find usually the more, I don't know, I want to say the more domesticated each reptile gets, the easier it gets to breeding, right? The more you can shrink those, let's say, cooling season, the more you can change all those type of things that they don't need, right? Like those targeted items, let's say like going down to 50. Well, maybe eventually a diamond python will only need to be cooled down to 65. You know what I mean? Like maybe after another 10 generations, they won't need to be cooled so hard. If things like don't get me wrong, I'm sure we're going to be shortened into a lifestyle by not keeping them cool and all down. There's other issues, but I'm just talking about how in time, most species that have been domesticated or bred with so many lineage, the breeding becomes easier and easier and easier, and you need to do a lot less to get them to breed. So I assume that that could be something that definitely happens. And the second thing I was going to say is, I like the idea of overhead heating. I love it, but for some people that just doesn't work. So in my case, when you have one tiny little room and you need to stack everything, that's the only way I can have enough cages to have the animals I want. There's no way I can put an overhead heat. Like if you look behind me, I just have towers from floor to ceiling, right? So there's no way for
Yeah.
me. So for me, radiant heat
You
panel
could,
is the
you
only.
might be able to, but you would have to rate what some guys and monitor guys do is they do the electrical themselves and put the heat lamps inside of it, but you just don't use a high wattage bulb like some guys use, like some sort of like a 20-watt bulb in each tub. And depending on how the temperature works, you might not even need to necessarily put, like for some of the males, you could probably get away with not even providing heat because the heat's coming up from the bottom and kind of spreading, and the ambient in the room is like warm enough that it would be fine. So you could just worry more about the females. Like Ryan Young, he hates heat panels. He calls them jerky makers, right? And then he only puts heat bulbs or heat emitters in the female boa or python cage, and only turns them on when they're gravid. Like even when otherwise he keeps the whole room ambient for the most part. Probably lets it drop at night, kind of thing. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe that's what he said. But yeah, no, but for sure he only keeps heat bulbs in with the females because it has that better UV radiation, like Greg talked about last week. Like he didn't totally realize that with the monitors, like the heat panel doesn't give off the same radiation as like a bulb or a heat emitter because it's able to penetrate more. Like obviously, like I use heat tape, I use heat panels, but keeping like I have one Bahama set up with just a 25 or 50-watt bulb in his cage. It's cool. Every day he comes out, basks on that cork underneath it. Kind of he'll shift just a little to the side of it, so he's not getting like the 90-degree hot spot, but he's getting that 85-degree kind of warm side. And then by the end of the day, he's kind of moves over to the other cork slab on the other side of the cage just to relax. But they're able to digest a bit better, I believe, too, with that heat, and probably also helps with their egg building and that too. Like if you've ever had some clutches where they've kind of slugged out, like I think that's why my one of my subox seems to always throw slugs and stuff. Maybe there's just something up with her, and maybe it's breeding a sibling to sibling or something like that. But I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe the heat is more of an issue with certain things than not. But it's food for thought for sure. With hearing how some python guys especially deal with how they heat their animals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
go David.
Oh, I'll be honest.
I was
I've
just going
lost
to
the train
say,
of thought.
I've okay. Then I'll go.
Nope.
So I was just going to say that I personally don't like radiant heat panels. Can you hear me? Or am I still?
Yeah, I
I'm
can
not
hear you.
muted.
I can hear you now. No, I got you.
Okay, perfect. So I was just going to say, I don't like radiant heat panels. I use them, but I don't like them. I think I would appreciate the bulbs, but I don't want to put them inside the cage because I don't want to have to build some kind of a protection around them. I've had too many occurrences where that becomes an issue.
Most
I
people
do know a
don't
way.
put a protection around it because they'll get stuck in the
Yeah,
cage that you put in there. So most honestly, like I'd be more like if you just get the normal flat pan bulb that just attaches, like they're not gonna loop around it necessarily at night. They'll if it's hot, it's hot. They're not that stupid. They're not
still,
gonna sit on a
uh,
150-degree bulb necessarily.
I've seen it happen before. So what I was going to say is the thought that I had that could work and that I've seen some people do it is they take that typical square cube, whatever it is, and cut a triangle in a corner in the back left corner, let's say. And this way
Oh
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
actually
yeah.
put a dome in that corner and you just have a flat mesh in that corner and then you can just add and you can actually keep stacking the cages with those. So there is ways of doing it. I just honestly, I'm at the point where this year I'm going to try with. They have each of the diamonds have a small, very tiny 30-watt radiant heat panel, and I do have heating as well, and it shuts off the entire night. And during the day, it does go on for 10 hours in my case. So, and it comes on from the top and bottom in that one cage, and the entire other side is going to be cold, right? So, will it work? I don't know. It's my first time trying, so we'll see. I think it will, but my girl's head is still. I don't know why, man. She's not growing, and she's a 2021, so
Okay.
I feel like she's of age. I think she can go, but yeah. Anyway, um, yeah.
Definitely the early side
Eric
of
still
things.
haven't gone, and his are old.
Go ahead, mate. David.
Oh, I said yeah. It's the early side of things, but I don't think that's it's. I don't think it's a bad thing to try, especially if she's big enough. I really like 5 or 6 for the first clutch. And that
She is big though.
yeah.
Just
So and that's something that man, I'm about to go into a crazy tangent, so stop me. Is I don't feed my diamonds very much for one particular reason. It is because of how fatty our domestic rodents are. So I really try to watch my adults and their body shape and body tone because not to jump back to what's the word the falconry, but my bird caught a pack rat this year, so I'm like, you know what, let's uh let's compare this to a domestic rat muscle tone wise and like fat body wise, and like let's really compare it. My god, uh the domestic rats, it was like a fat on every organ mass, every extremity crease. It was greasy, like it didn't feel good on the hands. And then the other one, it was this very like pink, low fat. It looked like healthy meat is the best way I can describe it. Um, so I'd always fed my diamonds less, and I did have a female die in like a freak accident a couple years or last year. She had a bacterial infection. Yeah, long story. It was from a burn from a wattage bulb that I had incorrectly put on there, and it eventually overtook her because it happened in the wintertime. I thought she had healed enough and done fine. So, um, all of this to then go back and say that when we did the necropsy, even though she was a small snake, the fat bodies on her were ridiculous. Like they were. I mean, she did not look fat. She did not look round. She had that kind of bread loaf shape that you would expect to see on a healthy Morelia. Um, so with my adults, I'm only ever trying to feed like a nice medium rat. That's probably the best way I can describe it. I don't want smalls are a little bit too small. Larges are nothing more than a giant conglomeration of fat, and it's gonna be a bad time eventually. Um, and I try to, in the early spring and like in the fall, I'll kind of hit the animals a little harder. Maybe I'm doing it feeding every 2 weeks. Maybe I'm feeding, um, depending on the condition of the animal, once a week. And then when it comes to like late spring through summer through early fall, it's just sporadic. It's just whenever I think about it, like, it's been a month. Oh, let me go feed something small. Oh, it's been 6 weeks. Let me go feed the diamonds. Um, and I think that's something that it needs to be considered when keeping diamonds long term. Is that it just seems like Morelia in general, because of how bulletproof and like their feeding responses are, they are just always going to be pounding that food down and building up those fat stores. So I think that winter break already kind of helps diamonds a little bit, but it's better to also just kind of keep up on that in the on season, the kind of monitoring their body condition and trying to fight the keeper's instinct and to feed more than is needed, because I know I have to stop myself sometimes and remember the animals look good. I'm not doing anything by giving them yet another meal. That's my nutrition tangent.
I No, I couldn't agree. I just want to say one thing first. When I said she's big enough, like she's not big, huge. If anything, they're quite small. My male is barely bigger than my thumb around and
Yeah.
about 4 feet. He's a long, skinny rope, and to me, he's perfect. My female is. I'm trying to think of like she's no bigger than a golf ball around. Like, is that kind of you know what? Like she's about 5.5 feet, 5 feet, 5.5 feet. The only reason I'm not sure she's ready is just because she doesn't have the two bulges on her head. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just they're just not there yet. So that's what I mean by I'm not sure she's ready. But I'll say I feed probably bigger meals than you, but I barely feed because you got to think about how long you. I stop feeding everything for a minimum of 6 months of the year, right?
Yep.
So for 6 months they're not eating. So you got to think about it. How many meals are they actually getting? Maybe 12 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it, right? Like when you think about the numbers. So I do feed relative, like I'll feed like large mediums or small large. Sorry, yeah, large medium or small larges is the best way I can put it. So, and I have no problem giving it to them because I don't feed them often. And when it comes to meals, me it's kind of the contrary. I got to convince myself that it's time to feed them because they can. I cannot feed anything for so long. Like even babies, I think I'm at 2.5 weeks now that I haven't fed any of the neos, and I mean they're only a few months old. I probably should get to it. But when it comes to winters, but also like I do feed all winter long, but when it comes to winter, I do it a lot more sparingly, only because I'm not feeding anything else. So I'm doing it less and less. It's kind of my way to get them slowly used to it, but I do keep feeding. So for me, I'm not too worried about overfeeding my snakes. Most of my males are insanely small. I have one or two males in my coastals that are really big. And which the funny thing is they're actually really really good breeder, which I always tell people a fat big male is not a good breeder. In this case they are, but everything else for me is all tiny males, and the reason I keep my males tiny, they breed and you don't need a huge cage for them, which just simplifies everything, right?
Yeah, and that wasn't a knock on you or anything. That was just my
No,
philosophy.
I know.
Yeah, and I saw that question pop up there. So yes, I do feed baby diamonds. What I just said was only for the adults. Babies and juveniles are their own beast. Obviously, they're growing. You got to feed them. I'm only referring to once they've got to that point where they look like they're sexually mature, where you really start to have to monitor their feed intake. And I don't really like to let them get below 60 degrees during the wintertime. I still want them basking and eating. Sorry, I still want them having a warmer temperature overall. And I really don't want them getting too cold to where their feeding response might be diminished. I know others have had success doing so, but I like feeding them through the first winter. Um, so
Yeah, and just to answer the other question, for me, nighttime drops for hatchlings, I do go down 2 degrees at night. So it's just a tiny little drop. It's nothing much, but all my cages go down 2 degrees at night over the daytime if it's not cooling season. So I don't know if it's similar, but you can answer that. And as well, after that, let's go. I know you went really quickly through incubation. Do you want to tell us how you incubate? What type of tubs you're using? What temperature and such?
yeah, so I finally broke down, and because I've never found a tub that I'm happy with purchasing from like the Container Store or Walmart. I've just never found one that made me happy. So I finally just broke down and bought some sim containers, and just went with the bulletproof suspended incubation method. I love them. I will never go back. I always seemed to struggle with the others of either letting them get too dry or letting them get too wet, depending on the lid and the material. The sim just kind of made it to where I don't even have to think anymore. I'll just I'll throw my perlite at the base, water it down, and then I'll just put them in the incubator. Very typical Morelia incubation. 87.5. They're going to be there for a couple months. Yeah, pretty boring incubation. But I will say when they come out, they are small. They are way smaller than the other carpet python complex animals. So it is going to be astounding when you first see them.
How many grams?
You know what? I've never actually weighed
You
one,
don't
and
know.
I probably should. But I know, when I bred Irian or jungles, I could throw a hopper mouse in there, and it'd be like, great, first meal. We're gonna have a giant gargantuan lump. Um, I tried that with diamonds, and all I ended up with was a bunch of dead hoppers that the snake couldn't swallow. And I was like, oh, so that truly is a level that is too big for them. They really are tiny, and you almost have to start with like I don't know, a smaller medium sized fuzzy, or like a button quail hatchling. Um, and they grow fast. You get past the first month, 6 weeks, and they're right on to hopper mice, and then it just becomes typical diamond python, or sorry, carpet python rearing.
So let's go into so they're hatching out now. What do you keep them in? How do you keep them? And how do you go for feeding them? Are you all starting them directly on baby mice? Are you doing ASF? Are you doing button quail? Are you doing scenting? What's kind of let's go down the baby talk and your setups for them.
Okay. Historically, I've just done the shoebox with a water bowl, and I really like using toilet paper rolls as hide boxes because one gets dirty, you throw it away, you put another one in there, and that's that. I like using cocoa, not cocoa fiber, that cocoa mulch. I think it's sold as like baby chips or cocoa chips, Reptichip rather. Um, that way, if the snake spills some water, or if it's I'm a little bit worried about humidity, I can just do a very quick spritz and then don't have to worry about sheds. um of course, it's heat tape. It's set to about 88 89 degrees, and then I Swiss cheese the tubs to make sure there's nice and good ventilation. um when I went down my sabak rabbit hole and had those, I kind of went crazy with ventilation for like everything out there to make sure, you know, I wasn't exposing animals that I otherwise didn't worry about to any sort of potential fungal or air quality problem. And then this year, I've got a local friend that has started raising several colubrid species, and he's using that. Like that green garden fencing that you can kind of cut and curve to put in your enclosure. Every green tree python out there guy is rolling their eyes because they've known about it for years. I've known about it. It just never been motivated enough to go buy my own, but I put that in my tubs to play around with, and like it was pretty amazing watching like every single one of them just like climb up there and like hang out on it. So I'm gonna make that a staple going forward and stop being lazy and utilize it. But before that, for perching, because it does seem like they would like it, I would do kind of a taller um, deli cup so they could kind of perch on the edge and still kind of get off the ground if they wanted to. Um, it's let's see if I have one nearby. Yep, it's these blue cups that you can get like night crawlers or waxworms in. So they're pretty tall. The snake can go in there and drink, but it could also just perch on the side and hang out. But I'd like to utilize more of that fencing as well. And I keep them in there until they either outgrow it, in which case they'll go into either an Exoterra 12 by 12 by 18. Um, I've got I'll have to send you guys a picture. I don't know if you so you guys can show it off, but they're reed stacks that a friend of mine had made out of tile and PVC. So you could literally just pull it out in one fell swoop. You don't have to worry about it shifting and crushing an animal. And then the snake can then just kind of move up and down in those tall enclosures, getting to the desired temperature and humidity point it wants to get to. And once they eventually will outgrow that, generally by that point they're in their adult enclosure. Even if they're still small, there's no other intermediate stage that I'll keep them in. So yeah, that's.
Nice, nice. If you do have pictures you want to send, you can probably just send them to Michael through. I don't know if you guys chatted through Instagram or
Yep.
things like that. It's
Yeah,
easy
you
to
could
add
send
them
them
up
to me.
after if you.
I can
Okay.
email them to myself.
I can't.
So there was.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go. Nope, go.
I was about to say I realized I didn't touch on feeding. That's the other part. They can be a little slower to start. I tried mice initially, and you'll get some that I mean, like first time you offer it, boom, they've taken the mouse, and you know that one's going to be growing pretty fast, and it's going to be one of the winners. But none they cannot resist a button quail. If you give them a button quail, they're eating it. I've I'm having a couple that are kind of a pain this year where like I had a couple runts and they're kind of being problematic. It seems like the Lazic outcrosses I've done can be a little slower to start. But even then, once they start across the board, um, a button quail is irresistible to them. I'll feed them that for 3 or 4 feedings, and generally I don't even need to scent. I just give them a mouse, and boom, they've taken it. It just seems like a switch flips where they know that what prey is, and they'll take it. I have had a couple that did get a little stubborn, where they definitely only wanted the quail, but they were so easily fooled by just a quick like rubbing the quail against the mouse. It did not take much whatsoever. It seems like they're not nearly as problematic as a normal or the old Morelia Python forums. It's such a consistent thing. How do I get my jungle carpet off mice? They're not picky. It's just sometimes you need to kind of give them a little like nudge, and they almost always will switch right over. So
Yeah, my answer to that is just stop feeding it.
yeah, that's the other.
Like I've never understood why that's a problem. Like any animal that became picky, I just stopped feeding and fine. You're not eating for the rest of the summer, then you're not eating all winter. And I guess what? When I start warming you up, everything eats anything that comes there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the one thing like your animals are able to go a year without feeding. Like anything that I'm not talking about a baby, but anything that's 2 years old or over, it can go a year without eating and it's still going to be fine. So to me, you've got to pick a feeder, just stop feeding it, wait, cool it, bring it back up. I promise you it'll eat.
Oh
They
yeah.
always eat. So for me, you were talking about button quails. For me, my best solution for trouble feeders is ASF. And ASF, because they have fur, because they move, and because they're so tiny, like a fuzzy ASF that moves is still like ridiculously tiny. I find like that's like my pièce de résistance, like it's the one thing that seems to work for freaking anything. So I don't know if you've tried ASF for your troublesome feeders or.
I haven't, mostly just because the button quail has been so. I can get
Yeah.
button quail super easy, but I do have two. I have two this year that I think it's time to go to the ASF route because uh, that clutch was super weird. Um, one of the animals in particular, it was kind of an odd case where I thought an egg had gone bad. Like the rest of the clutch had hatched. I was literally tossing out eggshells. It was a black, moldy, gross looking egg. And I picked it up and my thumb went straight through the shell and a live baby fell out with a yolk sac. I was like,
That's
whoa.
weird.
I'm like, that's not expected. So, we let it try to absorb its yolk. Thankfully, my girlfriend is a vet tech. So, after a couple days, we ended up you could see the yolk sac was starting to go bad. She kind of helped clean it up. She did end up having to cut it prematurely. The animal was super small, um, and here we are. It's been weird. It had its first shed last week. It hatched in August. I mean, that's bizarre. It has had a couple button quail, and it's been so spotty on taking those button quail that I've got a local friend that breeds ASFs, and it might be time to finally branch out into something else with them. Um, but thankfully, the majority of the others I've hatched and raised have been absolutely bulletproof on just a typical either mouse or button quail, and then immediately they'll switch over to mice with no problem. So
Nice. So let's go down to the. So all your babies hatch out. Let's say they've had their first shed. How are you selecting your holdbacks? So what are you looking for? Because Like let's be honest, like baby diamond pythons look like little black with barely any spotting on them, right? Like there's like how are you selecting? Or are you just like, I don't care, I'm gonna wait 5 months until I can really see what they look like? I'm just curious how you go about it.
I wish I could describe it very well. I'm looking for contrast first off. I want jet black. I want really nice rosettes. I do not want a lot of tipping. I know that's contrary to what a lot of guys like. I really like the thick black borders, and I like that kind of like tipping, kind of creeping up from the belly and then almost fizzling out when it gets to those black borders, and then the really clean rosettes. Um, uh, there's a couple animals on my Instagram. I've got a male Lazic San Diego Zoo animal that I've been raising up. He's sort of textbook of what I'm looking for. Um, so I've got a nice Valle animal I produced this year. Like while the others, you're starting to see some tipping on them. Like her rosettes are just very clean. The black is very thick. And even if tipping eventually does creep in, it doesn't look like it's going to turn into just like absolute tipping or fish netting all over the snake, like you see with some. Um, and that's just a personal preference. That's not necessarily that it's better than somebody else's. That's just sort of, I like that kind of contrast, and I kind of want to exacerbate that with the animals I produce.
And at what point do you start selecting? Are you after a few sheds? And just I'll let you answer. What is tipping? That's being asked in
Oh,
the live chat there.
so tipping is it just you'll hear it referenced in many different species. Just in diamond pythons, tipping is kind of referring to the yellow coloration um, that is kind of coming through on. Oh, how do I put it? It's sort of the bright colors that are coming through on most of the scalation, there might be a slight black border on it, but generally the scale is mostly yellow or, depending on the lineage, white. It's hard to describe without having a snake in front of you to be able to kind of point this out. Um, as far as selecting goes, I the minute they hatch, I'll start looking all over all of them, and I'll put a star next to a couple of the animals that I know I really want to watch. Oh yeah, perfect. Sorry, we'll back up to tipping for a second. Michael's pulling up some photos now. Yeah, that one that right there that you're hovering over, click on that one. So all of those yellow scales, if you'll notice how they are yellow with like a black
Zoom in,
border.
zoom in, Mike. So
I don't know if I
keep
can
going,
zoom
David.
in.
Oh, you can zoom in. Come on.
You can kind of see.
So yeah, the yellow with that kind of black border around it, that's what's referred as tipping, or fish netting is the other term that was always used. There is nothing wrong with that look. A lot of people like that look, and it's understandable. It's a brilliant yellow snake. I just sort of like when there's a little bit more of a contrast with some nice thick dark borders around the rosettes, which, for those listening that don't know, the rosettes are sort of the concentrated patches of white, or kind of like a buttercream color, that are bundled up going down the snake, generally in like the form of like 3 or 4 scales that are like spots, and they're coming down both the dorsal and lateral sides. Um, so yeah, and then like I said, the minute they hatch, well, even before they shed, I'll start going through and just kind of like putting little stars next to animals that just kind of caught my eye. Um, and I think it's a bias thing, because generally once I put the star there, I already know I'm keeping it. Whether or not it turns out the way I want, it almost becomes a stubborn thing of like, I saw that animal when it hatched, I like it, I'm keeping it. And thankfully, I've been happy with the results for the most part. Um, but even if an animal gets to like I have a San Diego Zoo Valle animal I raised up, and she didn't quite exactly end up the way I wanted her to. She's got a little less of the dark bordering around her. Still a beautiful animal. She still has great genetics, and I want to be able to keep that animal in my colony, even if it's not necessarily going to be furthering my phenotypic goals, as far as genetically healthy, for keeping a colony genetically healthy, I'm going to keep her around. So.
Yeah, for sure. I do the same thing with like the Kentuckies and that. It's like I think that one's gonna look nice. I'm gonna put a star on that one, and then you pick it. And like actually, this year I think the male holdback Kentucky from this year is going to be pretty good. Although I should handle these things a bit more because man, like the mum is like great. You can hold her almost any time, but fuck, the rest of them want to musk and bite. Like before this, I'd never been musked by any Pituophis, and now half these babies are musking on me and biting me when you pick them up, and it's like, maybe it's a bit of inbreeding, but wow, I should probably get that under control before they're 6.5 feet long.
So you bring up a good point. Unlike a lot of some other carpet pythons when they're young, diamond pythons could not be gentler, or like they're almost just seem like shy and calm. The jungles near Yanjayas I've hatched out in the past. You get some Spitfires that they're ready to like put up a shield, and they're ready to like go to battle with you. And the diamonds, it's almost like they just don't care. I know some people like to try to do like the smacking the quail or mouse against the head, try to get them to start. A diamond you do that with, and it's just like, oh, stop. And like it's not fleeing. It just kind of like repositions itself and kind of tries to like get away from it. And they just don't. The best way I can describe them is docile. So they don't have that general like spitfire or spunk that you might see with some animals to start.
I think that's what makes him a bit of a harder feeder, right? Because the inlands were very similar. Inlands were extreme, like inlands and diamonds are very docile in nature compared to the other carpet pythons, I find. And I find that's what makes it a bit harder to feed them because they don't have that psychotic bite everything. Like I'd say 95% of all baby carpets bite and bite at anything that comes near them, right? Whether it's a feeding response or not, it's just, I'm scared you're going to eat me, I'm biting. It's a defense mechanism, right? But the inlands, they don't do that. And I'm assuming, and I've heard that a lot about diamonds, is that they don't have that aggressive protect mechanism of doing that. And even the adults, I've never seen a diamond that strikes or that's aggressive. So maybe I'm wrong. I also actually, well, one of my inlands is food aggressive, but as soon as you have her out, she's fine. But most of them are all extremely tame. So it's a quality I'd put on there for that species, which is, it's kind of cool. I mean, if that's what you want. Like personally, I don't care if a snake bites or not. To me, it just makes it a better feeder. It makes it easier to get them started. So inlands were horrible to start. They were horrible. I've heard that diamonds are no better, and that it's a pretty big challenge for many. So I'm kind of curious to, like, for you. Let's say I don't actually. Let's go down that road. How many babies have you had, and what's your average of how much you get feeding, or do you have like, everything feeds within 6 months except two babies, or what's your percentage kind of?
I won't pretend that I've had like the most success, but I've hatched out about 60 babies. And my goodness, it seems like the majority. It is like, and again, this is with the button quail, and that's why I like them so much. It is like crack to them. You give them a button quail, boom, they just fed. It seems like they get all generally feeding within the first offering or two. I have had, I'll say about maybe 20%, and those have mostly been the Lazic outcrosses. Those babies just seem to be a lot more, even more docile than I would say compared to some of the other bloodlines. And kind of hypothesizing and talking with some other people that keep diamonds, we almost wonder if that bloodline just comes, it's much darker. They're much, they almost look more like what you would expect to see in like the the south of New South Wales, Victoria region, kind of that area of diamonds.
Would the Lazic
Maybe.
ones are a bit more closer wild animals, possibly?
Oh yeah, I mean, and so they're
Were
on
they one of
my
the animals that Casey got in trouble for, or no? I don't know
not
which ones or which. No.
no. These animals. Casey got an animal from somebody else. Um, which I mean, it's not a legal problem anymore, but everybody in these stories are alive, so I don't want the herp community to I don't know, make more out of it than it is. Casey got an animal that had noose marks and ticks on it from somebody else. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. And the story I told was told that that animal showed up like that, and then very shortly thereafter laid a clutch of eggs. So, I mean, yeah, during the time period where people were not breeding diamond
That's like
python.
a dream.
Yeah. So the idea is that potentially, like Michael said, these could just be early filial generations where they are so wild still that they are kind of hesitant to start in captivity. It could be that these animals, which do appear to be more of a southern locality, not verifying that, not saying that's possible, that's what they are. It's just sort of a hypothesis that maybe they feed differently down there. Maybe they're a little bit slower starter. Maybe they're eating a different prey base that compared to the animals that like the San Diego Zoo animals. You can find these records still. They're out there. They came from Gosford, Australia. Maybe those animals, which have been relatively easy to get started, are eating a different prey base in the wild because the San Diego zoos are still only at third generation for many of us. My Valle animals are, oh my goodness, you almost can't stop them from feeding. And then the Lazic outcrosses, no matter whether I paired it with the San Diego Zoo or the Valle, they have been problematic both years. And that's probably been the 10-20% that have just always been kind of a problem to get started. And generally, it seems as though time, more than anything, kind of resolves that. It's almost as just they have no urgency to them. But of the animals that really did not want to get started, it has been that bloodline, those outcrosses.
So you've produced reduced pattern diamonds. Have you produced them through outcrosses or what you perceive to be outcrosses?
Good question. I've only produced them with my a pair of Valle bloodline animals. The first year, let me back up a little bit. There's been some back and forth on what the reduced pattern truly is. There's been people saying that it's nothing more than what's the word I'm looking for here? That is nothing more than line bred traits or polygenic traits. But the first year I produced them, I hatched out 3 animals and a clutch of 14. The male, unfortunately, had pipped, seemed healthy, and then I found him deceased later, only one of the clutch. And then the 2 females. I was like, that's really close to like a perfect 25%. And then this year, and a clutch of, I believe it was 17, I hatched out 4 more. I'm like, that's really close to 25%. And I'm fairly certain, and I have not reached out to this person to verify, but I'm fairly certain someone in the States has bred 2 reduced patterns together and gotten 100% reduced pattern.
Okay, so I'll stop you right there. First of all, your 2 adults, each of the adults you bred were non-reduced pattern, right? Like they're all normals?
Yep, none of the adults were all normals.
Okay.
They look completely normal.
So, okay, so then your hypothesis then is saying that the gene is recessive, obviously, because then you would be implying that both the adults were hets, and that's how you got the quarter. I can tell you for sure, a Canadian breeder, which I will remain nameless. This is the first clutch in Canada.
With
knows
the
now?
other guy, I'm Aslam
Other guy, okay.
produced the
No,
one
no,
that
I'm
Eric
talking about-
has now. But yeah,
So that guy has babies from him too. That's where. So he's produced reduced pattern to reduced pattern. He had something like 7 eggs. Only 3 of them hatched. All 3 were 4 of them hatched. All 4 were reduced pattern.
Yep.
So 100% reduced pattern. So but again, you got to think about it that if the animals, let's say they weren't, the problem with that argument is, let's say they weren't recessive. Let's say it is an incomplete dominant. If you breed incomplete dominant to incomplete dominant, most likely you'll get, like if it's incomplete dominant, but you've got the homozygous form, right? You would still get 100% homozygous reduced pattern, right? So that's where I'm not 100% sure. But the point is that that clutch has produced 100% reduced pattern.
Okay. And that's good to know, and that's kind of why I've held back a pair. Is I'd like to experiment with this. I'd like to breed them together eventually. I would like to breed them to animals. You know, quite frankly, probably breed them back to their parents for one generation. I'm not a big fan of direct, family to family inbreeding, but as of right now, those are the ones that I 100% know have that gene, and I want to see if we get 50% out of the clutch at that point. Um, and then as far as outcrossing has gone, yes, animals from San Diego Zoo bred to Valle unexpectedly produced reduced patterned animals. And those look odd. And I don't mean that in like a nefarious sense. That's not a purity debate. That's more of a interesting. It's almost like I hesitate to throw this term out there and make it. I don't want anybody to take it as gospel. It reminds me of like allelic. Um, um, two
Yeah, that's
morphs on the
fair.
same allele. They just looked a little different to me, and that could be crap. I don't know. But just knowing the stories of San Diego Zoo and where Valle's animals came from, there is not known crossover. And Valle was also
So
not one to lie about his animals and how he bred them together. Um,
my the reduced pattern has popped up in too many lines though.
yep,
Like everybody I talked to has a different line and it popped up. So I have one reduced pattern female, and she's a Gosford line,
that's that's
and
that's San Diego Zoo.
okay. So and she was produced by UK Python that had zero reduced pattern, and she just popped up out of nowhere after breeding in multiple different years, right? Which again is weird. And you talk to people, there's been reduced pattern in what, like four different lines now. I think I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to go through them, but it's it makes me wonder, one, how really pure each line is, because it's kind of weird that the same gene is popping up in all. Or I've heard the story of it all came from one clutch, it got spread to multiple different zoos, and then we each called those zoos a different line, but really they all come from the same lineage, really, in the end, which also would explain why the reduced pattern is popping up everywhere.
Well, and
I don't
that
know.
is
And I don't know what the answer is.
the case. A lot of the zoo animals, it's hard to go into on a podcast, but when you look through the records, those Gosford animals, they kind of went to a lot of different places. So a San Diego Zoo is quite the same as a couple other different lineages.
Because
As the clutches
there's
of
river
these.
there's a couple zoos, right, that are I don't know if they're known for their reduced patterns, but there's several zoos that got diamond pythons kind of around the same time, from what I believe through stories, right? Like Riverbank
Yep.
and a few others, I believe.
Which, and they had
Yeah.
animals from San Diego at one point. Um, and let's see, Valle's animals. It is not my story to tell, but his animals are not related to San Diego Zoo. Um, there is no known crossover whatsoever, and that's what kind of makes that one so interesting to me. Um, and
So
until
just repeat, Valle to what produced a
Valle to,
reduced pattern?
Valle to San Diego Zoo, and it was both. It was
But a San Diego zoo that was not reduced pattern.
yeah. This was not. This was not. What's the word? Planned. This was just supposed to be an outcross. There was no attempt to breed them together.
So the reason I'm going down to the genetics. So let's say the Valle animal was. I'm going to go with. Let's say one animal was incomplete dominant for river, like it doesn't work. So that's why you're 25. The only explainable theory would be that both animals were het for reduced pattern, right? That's the only way you'd get 25%. Because if one animal was incomplete dominant, it wouldn't work, because then you would see it. So that means that kind of removes that theory. Huh, it's
And,
interesting. Okay, I'm just
and
trying to figure out the genetics, and that's the only explanation that works.
And I go back and forth about it because it does seem so improbable. But I'm not going to call Gary Valle a liar, especially since he's no longer. You can't contact him. I don't know where he is. Nobody does. But he was very a straight shooter about making sure the bloodlines were kept independent from one another, and it has been popping up in Australia and various populations in the wild as well. So I don't necessarily mean to say that it is, I think it's a combination of multiple factors, and I'm not sure we're ever going to get a straight answer about where, how, or why. So as of right now, all I want to do is for myself, the evidence is out there. You can piece it together. Like you said, people have produced 100%. People have consistently produced 25%. I just want to do my own test breedings and document it to the T, so it could be thrown out there and be like, this is simple recessive. There is no, so and so has done this, so and so has done this. I have done this. Here is everybody's evidence. It's done. And
For sure.
So
Nick Mutton's definitely talked about it. Like, he's explained slight frustration because he's not necessarily a diamond guy, but he's shared that, like, why haven't diamond people like figured this out? Because it's been around for years and nobody's figured it out. But it sounds like we're getting close to that. So that is pretty cool. Maybe for the third carpet book, we'll be able to say that.
The problem with that is I'll let you talk right after, David. The problem is, here's my issue. So I have a reduced pattern going to, and my reduced pattern is, I said Gosford, my male is Riverbank Zoo. So if I breed him to a reduced pattern to a wild type, if I get nothing, all wild types, then I can assume that my male is not het, and that would mean that the female is recessive, right? But then if I get half, like it's a hard one, because then if I get half, does that mean that she's het, or does it mean that it's incomplete dominant and they're still getting the same gene? Because there's some incomplete dominant genes
Riverbank
that the super form
could be the same though. Your Riverbank could be het.
No, that's what I'm saying. So, but let's say the Riverbank Zoo is het, then 50% will be reduced pattern. But let's say the Riverbank is not het, but that the gene is actually incomplete dominant, but that my reduced pattern is incomplete dominant, but in a homozygous form. And the homozygous form looks the same as a heterozygous form. So you have, if you only have one gene or two gene, you still have a reduced pattern, right? It might be more reduced, but we don't really quantify how reduced the pattern is. So let's say my Riverbank Zoo has absolutely no genes and I get half of them. Now the question is it because the mother only gave one allele to every baby, so they're all still reduced pattern? Or is it, so even with that pairing, it literally tells me nothing. Like, I can't even get the answer because I can't tell you if my male has het or not. So my breeding is purely, I hope I get some out of it. If I don't get any of it, then sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, and that's kind of why I want to play around with my colony, because I can, the original two Valles were normal looking diamonds. The first generation, there were no reduced pattern diamonds. I bred two first generation diamonds together. I've got second generation Valles. Those produced reduced patterns. And that's why I'm just going to assume that both of those animals were carriers. And breed them back to the offspring. I want to breed the offspring together. And you're right. I can see Dom smiling there. It's a mess, and I want to try to.
So no, because I'm trying to figure out how it works. So to me, what happened there is one of your original parent was het.
Yep,
that's what in my head was, and that's why you got 0 babies that were RPD. Then one of those babies that you bred, or whichever holdbacks you had, 2 of those holdbacks were het from that pairing. Because 50% of the so, and to me, that's how you would have gone, and that works with the recessive theory, right?
Yep.
So to me, that's how that happened in your case, and that's what works in my head, because incomplete dominant doesn't work. But then, if we rule out incomplete dominant, the polygenic thing to me doesn't work, because it's such a gigantic phenotypical difference that I don't see it. I don't see how, and there's too much of a like a perfect percentage split whenever I look at clutches. Like, it's, to me, it doesn't work. It's not like you take Tiger or like, it just doesn't work. So, But anyway, I'm smiling only because I'm going through my head, and your breedings is telling me recessive, and most breedings tell me recessive. But the problem is, I think, is that most diamonds are probably het.
And I
think they've been pushed into. Sorry, go.
Oh no! I think you're right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And
you're not. I want to keep the conversation going. So go for it. I like what you're thinking.
And I'll go back to what Michael said too about how diamond guys haven't really solved it. And I wouldn't. It's not laziness or anything. I don't want to put too many words in the mouths of those before me, but they just didn't care. It was just like oh, that's weird, that's interesting. Their big thing was they wanted to produce normal, wild type, healthy diamond pythons and keep bloodlines pure. And then the reduced patterns would pop out and be like, oh, that's interesting. And I'd move it along. There'd be somebody that would want it, and it was never a focus. And we herpiculture has shifted to where a lot more of I don't want to say morph culture in a bad way, but I mean it's fascinating. You get eventually if something weird pops up like that, people take notice and they want to play around with it. And you take an animal also like a diamond, where a lot of people fail with them, and they are the generation times between them can be long, because I mean to get your first clutch, you're looking at a potential 5 or 6 years. So add in a sort of like this doesn't interest me kind of attitude versus an animal that takes a while to mature, and it just took a while to get there. But I mean, there are people that have been working on it, and I don't really like that it's been almost treated as if it hasn't been acknowledged, and that's not toward you guys. I don't like that it has been treated as if laziness or ineptitude caused it to be this way. But Greg Heim comes to mind. He's been doing a lot with the reduced pattern stuff, and I think he's a gentleman that he has done a lot to kind of put that in the forefront with his test breedings. Whether they were purpose or accidental, I do not know. That's a conversation for Greg. I have not talked to him about how he kind of planned that stuff out. But I think we're pretty close to being able to put that to rest. It was not something. It was a species that took a while to get figured out by the majority of herpiculture, and it's a species that matures slowly. So we're just now getting there.
I think also for the North American sector, and I'm excluding Australia, I think it's really hard for us because the test breeding needs to be to an animal that we're 100% sure is wild type or has no other genes, right? Which most,
cobra
if not
food,
almost all. So we can't guarantee that, but compared to if we were in Australia, they do have reduced pattern in Australia, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So then to me, an Aussie can definitely find a lineage that is 100% without reduced pattern, and they can do that pairing then and know, right? We can't do that one because again, I have one that's wild, but I can't guarantee it's not het. There's no way for me to know because almost every lineage has had some cross of another lineage or has had reduced pattern pop up in their line. So therefore, we always have that. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Therefore my pairing is inconclusive and doesn't really help. But if we were an Aussie, I feel like they are the ones that almost have to have that because we can't get a non-het guaranteed.
And then we can have,
if it's recessive,
and we can have fun with it too, because in Australia it's popping up in multiple different localities. You can find like wild pictures from like herpers or on iNaturalist of a reduced pattern, just like out and about. And then I failed to mention Jan Erik Engel, the guy who produced the first Jaguar carpet. He had stardust diamonds, what he called them. But if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I mean, I think it's safe to say that was the same thing as the reduced pattern, and that was, my God, that was the.
I feel like
90s.
That's been squashed. It's the same.
Yeah.
In the end, it's kind of like the same as stonewash and bredli and white-sided bull snakes. Like it's a form of pied almost to an extent, which means it's probably recessive. Although Nick Mutton may argue that it is a incomplete dominant due to it being, well, some pieds do have a visual het, be that het recessive or incomplete dominant with a slight visual kind of tweak to it, right? Like I think Nick calls exantic carpets almost like a incomplete dominant instead of a recessive because the het exantics almost look a little exantic to an extent. But that's just his opinion. There's no facts behind that.
Exantic is 100% incomplete dominant. That's known. It's not recessive. I don't care what people say. it is 100% the definition of incomplete dominant. I do think it's a form of piebald. Now, my next question is there any piebald in any of the snake morphs that is not recessive? Do you know of any?
Man, I
Well,
can't.
Like if you think of,
pieds are a visual het. There's some visual cues to
okay, but
het, pied, ball pythons,
so
but they're
you're
ball
talking about a
pythons, so maybe
marker,
that's
but you're talking about a marker, right? You're talking about a marker that tells you yes, it's het, but overall, it's not showing the piebald, the pied in them, right? So to me, I get the marker. I'm going to exclude the marker. So remove the marker. Overall, a het usually in a recessive you don't see. Do they have markers that tells you this is probably a het? Yes, and some people have figured that out. And I've had a couple of chats with Nick actually recently about markers in different genes that aren't proven yet that have really interesting potential that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. He'll talk about it eventually, which he's made me look throughout my animals to see if they had them because I've had a lot of discussions. And but that doesn't mean that it's not recessive. I don't think the marker removes the odd. But what I'm going back for reduced pattern, if reduced pattern is considered a piebald gene, which I think it is, just like the Bredley and Stonewash, which doesn't really look like a piebald, but it is a piebald gene. So to me, that even more confirms that it's most likely recessive. That's where my brain is going anyway.
Yeah.
God, I'm rambling a lot today.
No. I am not a morph guy, so I mean, like, I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm with, like, I mean, I know the basics. I just mean, I have not kept up with a lot of the carpet morphs, so like learning about the exanthic stuff, for example, I was like, oh, that's new. I didn't know that. So yeah, the reduced patterns are just sort of my only morph I work with here, and it's mostly just I actually swore up and down that if I ever hatched one, I would not keep one. I was like, I'm too much of a wild type diamond. And then I hatched one. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep it.
Owen saying he's not going to hold back his rough scale python missing one scale, and it's like, oh, damn it, it's het scaleless. gotta get rid of it.
and then I hatched more this year, and I was like, well, it would be a shame to not try to breed them together. And, you know, it's easy to be on your high horse until you've got an animal in front of you, and then you're like, oh, well, I mean,
have you seen an adult reduced pattern? It's insane. Like the colors are just insane. Like, and I love the wild type. Like, I really, really love the wild type. But man, they're both ridiculously gorgeous animals. So to me, I'm a big wild type fan, but I'm not excluding reduced pattern. And you know what? Technically, they're found in the wild as long as that's not somebody's released pet.
right? Well, and it's something that when I bring people down to the basement, like I've got one now. I mean, she's going on 2 years old, and I mean, she just pops. She's like a light bulb when you walk by her. And the other day, my girlfriend, she likes the herps. Like, she doesn't really interest her to want to work with them, but she likes looking at them. And she walked by it, and she went like, "Oh, holy shit!" Like, it grabs your eye. Like it's it really is. They really are something special. So yeah.
David, do you have enough time to maybe hit on some pancake tortoise stuff?
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too late.
This is my Saturday, so I mean, like, so long as you guys are good,
I'm okay. Dom may have work really early in the morning.
I am working at 4, but I'll go on for a little bit. One quick 10-second question: has anybody ever done reduced pattern to reduced pattern and produce non-visual reduced pattern? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No. So just a thought. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Greg Heim hatched out at 100% clutch of nothing but reduced.
Everyone I know, it's been 100%. So it's just a sideline that also proves it. Okay, pancake tortoise, Michael, it's all you.
Sounds like the NASCAR trial that's going on.
That
right
has
now.
legs. So it can't be.
Alrighty. Yeah, pancake tortoises. What, like, I've honestly, like, I've thought recently, like, I've kind of done over the periodically the last few years, I've gone into looking at turtles and tortoises. Obviously, Ryan Dumas and Tom have had their podcast, which hasn't happened in a year, so that's kind of sad because we need a turtle podcast. Like, because Anthony's isn't even on Spotify anymore, which kind of sucks because I want some sort of turtle tortoise stuff. But yeah, here pancakes. Like, what does your collection consist of? And maybe talk a little bit about pancakes for the people that don't know about pancake tortoises.
Sure. So I've got 4 adults, so 2.2. I've hatched out one, so I mean my success is pretty low. Incubation is something I'm figuring out. And I've got another animal that I purchased to raise up. And I will, in full disclosure, say that unfortunately I'll have to. I'm going to be sending these to a friend soon, just because. Not necessarily that I want to get out, but we are looking at kind of trying to get a house and change our living situation. And I want to move some animals to some friends' hands with the hopes of getting them back one day. So I just want to put that out there in the open. My plan was to build a really nice collection and try to maintain them and, pardon my language, breed the shit out of them because I think they're amazing. I don't want to see them kind of what's the word, vanish or become underappreciated. They're so weird and so cool. And thankfully, a friend of mine, like I said, is willing to hold on to them for a while. He's stoked. But they're the most anti-tortoise there is. I mean, first off, they're squishy. If you've never held one, like you can like gently like, touch their shell and like it'll go inward. They can inflate themselves. They can use that kind of flexibility to be able to wedge themselves into rock crevices. Um, Now, with that flexibility also comes the fact that they can dry out and dehydrate pretty fast, especially when they're babies. So it's important to always make sure that you're keeping them what's the word? Dry but humid. It's such a contradictory thing. I keep mine in actually those PVC enclosures behind me. Um, I had to use some tile to increase the litter dam. And I just packed a bunch of sand soil mixture in there. And whenever I feed them, I will do a quick spray down. Um, the big thing that one of your biggest killers of tortoises is going to be a bladder stone or a urinary stone from uric acid building up from either being dehydrated or eating food that is way too high in either protein or uric acid, or not uric acid. What is it? Oh, it'll come to me in a second. But like, yeah, you want to avoid kale and spinach, for example. And it makes sense when you look at what these tortoises are eating. It's like the worst of the worst plant matter. It's like dry grasses, and they'll get a flower here and there, but like, they're eating nothing and really trying to get as much nutrients from it as possible. Um, so dry but humid. They're also not a species that's necessarily seeing a giant temp drop, and that's where these PVC enclosures have kind of come in handy. Is I keep them pretty nice and toasty because of the temperature variation in the stacks. The animals on the bottom have a basking light in conjunction with a UV strip, which provides like a 90-degree hot spot on one side, 75 ambient on the other. But then when I get to the top stack, I don't even have a light bulb in there because just the UV strip is getting it up to 86, 87, almost constant throughout the day. And then during the nighttime, it's going back down to the high 60s, low 70s. And that's really, I don't want it going any further than that. Generally, I will say when it comes to personality, they're a little duller. And that's just the fact that their entire life is living in rocks. They're not really coming out, but there are some animals. Like I've got a male that when you walk in the room, if he sees you, he'll come out and start like following you around. And I don't know if it's a territoriality or aggression thing, or if he's just a naturally curious animal. But like he'll run out there and start taking lettuce from your hands, and they're exceptional climbers. That's actually one thing I would say is like you can put some tortoises in a stock tank and you're just no lid, no nothing. These things, if you do not cross all your T's and dot all your I's when it comes to your ability to keep them enclosed, they will climb out. And I mean, I had someone tell me a story about how they had like a little concrete wall with like that PVC coated wire as sort of a top fence between two tortoise pens, and a male pancake tortoise had. I don't know if it was because they were together and he knew that tortoise was over there or could smell him, but he would actually scale that wall, hook his arm over that fence barrier, flip himself over there just to go attack that male over and over again until they could get the fencing kind of situated better. But just a really fascinating species. Um, is there anything in particular? I can ramble and just like
the rambling is fantastic because because Egyptians seem to have a very small. Like I only know of one guy with a pair. There's probably a few others that are around from when they were able to be imported / older animals in the hobby. So like Egyptians would be like a fantastic animal I'd want to work with. I know you work with them too, and you're part of Ralph Till's kind of group with that, which I think we're gonna have like another show to talk about that, the rest of kind of what you work with too in the future. I want to have Ralph on because Ralph Till, like Dom, I know you're not a tortoise guy, but Ralph Till is fucking passionate about Egyptian tortoises, and he could talk probably for hours about Egyptians and how he wants to kind of help them and keep them going along
I
without
don't see a
making any
problem with
money.
doing. You can do a tortoise show. I'll do one, but if we keep doing them, I'll be like, find somebody who loves tortoise and find yourself a co-host for that show. The problem is it's hard for me to follow, right? Like I understand, and when I worked at the zoo, man, we worked with tortoises. I worked with pancakes, and the first I was to say the toughest thing I found about the stupid pancake tortoise, and I love them, was that they would jam themselves between rocks, and you couldn't get them out. Like if you had some type of permanent, but if your enclosure were permanent, they would literally go in, inflate, and then they'd be jammed there. There was nothing you could do to get them out until they came out on their own. So usually it was just coaxing them out with food, and then you'd get them out, right? Like I've worked with tortoises; they're super cool. I just don't want them in my house. Like the feeding every single day, everything is just so much work. I guess I'm a really lazy keeper. That's why I keep pythons. They're just so simple.
Oh yeah,
well, and that's why I did the disclosure that I've had to move some stuff along because I mean, like, it got to a point where I was like, if we're gonna get a house and we're gonna move, like, I think it might be time to kind of like reprioritize for a couple of years and then kind of absorb the collection back up because I mean, like, it's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of money, and I love it. I love the animals, but I'll love them in a couple of years once we're not renting anymore. you know. But
for sure. Like I'm thinking about probably moving out to Alberta in the next couple of years, possibly sooner, but at least in the next couple of years, kind of thing. And pancakes and possibly even some water turtle stuff where like I want to do them, but like right now I can't necessarily keep all the species living in BC that I want to keep because like there is some possibility of us getting Indian spotted turtles up here and stuff like that, and even box turtles and that. And moving to Alberta, I can keep all those. Here in BC, we can't due to our laws that were made in 1982 when everything was the same goddamn genus as sliders and painted turtles. But yeah, like and tortoises, like they seem a little easier, but I do know like pancakes are one of those that are you gotta keep them kind of warm still. Like Russians, I could probably keep them outside here year round. Almost it might be a little wet, but for the most part, our temperatures are probably there. But then I don't know. Russians are cool, but then you find out that Russians are like 5 different subspecies, and you're like probably mostly okay. But when you find that out, you're like, oh well, I don't want to just jump into them and get possibly hybrids. Probably not, but you never know.
well, and then I could ease your mind on that in saying that when they were importing them, they basically threw all of them into like one little center, and they were all mixed up anyway. And then it complicates everything even more. um, um, and bringing up the Egyptians, that's sort of also why like I've had to take a rethink, is because the Egyptians are kind of really what we want to do right. Um, and pancake tortoises, you can keep pairs together year round. They do not care. They do fine, and you can't really do that, from my understanding. Talking to Ralph, talking to the other tortoise guys, you cannot realistically keep Egyptian tortoises well year round together in pairs. The most success seems to have been from separating, putting together. Um, and if we're going to do this right, until we can get a bigger space, it's got to be all Egyptians all the time in the house. Um, but yeah. So
With the pancakes, so what temperature? So you kind of mentioned the temperatures. How big are the cages, and kind of what are you trying to like? What's their diet, and then what are you trying to accomplish inside of that cage that you keep them in?
let's see. I got to remember. I can't remember if they're 4x2x2 or 3x2x2. I'm pretty sure they're 3x2x2. Um, they are top tier cages. One of the American cage companies. Um, Relatively, I don't want to say closed chamber, but there are some ventilation slots in the back, but it allows to kind of keep that humidity level up. Um, eh, Inside of the enclosure is a chick drinker. Um, I really hate using just a typical water bowl for a tortoise. They will find a way to defoul it, destroy it. They will drag their poop in there. They will drag food in there. They'll top it over, put substrate. The chick drinkers seem to be the safest way to at least try to maintain some level of cleanliness with their water. Even then, they still find ways. And then just tile stacks that they can kind of wedge themselves in, almost completely touching their shell. You know, you don't want it too tight. They will rub that carapace and plastron to where it will begin to wear down over time. So enough that they can kind of inflate themselves and kind of lock themselves in, but not enough, not tight enough that they're jamming themselves in and damaging their shell in the process. Um, Dietarily, I'm primarily feeding a lot of just different types of lettuces. So red leaf, green leaf, romaine. Um, Costco down here sells a spring mix that does not have spinach or kale. So I'll utilize that as well. But I do not feed spinach. I do not feed kale. I have a couple hibiscus plants that we will pull flowers from whenever they have a bloom and try to feed them out to the herbivore collection. During the summer and spring, we'll go out and pluck dandelions and toss those into broadleaf plantain when it's available in our yard.
Do
Our
you
backyard.
feed the dandelion leaves at all? When I worked at a zoo for a bit of work experience, we would every day the lead keeper would go out and just snip dandelion leaves all day long, and that's almost the main diet of the lizards and tortoises of that reptile house.
Oh, yep, we did the flowers and the greens. Good point. Um, we also have mulberry trees. It's like ridiculous how many are around our house. So I'll just go out there, and because a couple of the trees are like damaged and eventually going to need to be just taken down, I'll just go out there and snap a limb down and like remove all the leaves from the limb and feed it out to all my herbivores. And that's actually a lot of a staple in the summertime because there's just so many of them that we can kind of utilize those quite a bit. I do not do fruit. I've tried a couple of the like the Zoo Med grassland tortoise diet. I've tried the Arcadia tortoise diet. I have not had luck with either of those with tortoises. Chuckwallas, different story. They will go crazy for both. Um, Missouri tortoise chow, I've tried with the pancakes as a supplement, not a main diet. More of just like a, oh crap, I'm out of greens. I didn't realize it. Let me get some of this, wet it down, and feed it out. They hate it. They will not eat it. Testudo species will. Marginateds, Russians, Egyptians. Pancakes do not. Another nice part about being in Kansas is that we actually have access to Apuntia cactus pads fairly recently, or fairly commonly. So I can buy those for pretty cheap, and the pancakes go crazy for cactus pads. Um, but
That's
it
cool.
does seem it seems like they get tired of them pretty quickly. Like, and that's all tortoises, not just the pancakes. Like you do that for a couple days, and they eventually start kind of like not being as into it. It's I don't know if it's just really dense or heavy in them, but it's a really nice like it's got a nice calcium phosphorus ratio as far as uh, plant matter goes, um, and it just sort of also helps hydrate them with how goopy those cactus pads can be on the inside. So, um, but
For sure.
primarily the diet is green, red leaf, romaine, and then the spring mix from Costco without spinach and kale. So
Interesting. Yeah, I've definitely heard recently watching Anthony Perleone's stuff. Like they're one of the pickier tortoises, kind of thing. Like as you said, Chasuto, the most common pet tortoises that are super great for everybody. They'll eat everything, and that while the pancakes are a bit more, little bit more picky. Not that they're super difficult to keep and take up a ton of space, but you just have to pay attention to them just a touch more, kind of thing. And their
yeah,
egg incubation is also a lot longer than most tortoises, right? They can be 6 to 12 months depending on how you do it.
yeah. I think the one I hatched was like 4 or 5 months. I'll need to check my records on that. Um, Full disclosure, I am learning about their incubation. It is bizarre.
Oh yeah,
I had maybe 8 eggs a couple years ago, and like I hatched one. And it's not a species that is naturally getting this crazy seasonal variation. And I saw a ton of copulation, so it's a question of is this a fertility issue with the animals? Are my incubation parameters not correct, and it's causing problems with the incubation. Um, and then like this year, I've got a pair laying, like she has laid 1 egg a month basically since October. Um, and then the other pair I haven't even seen copulation or breeding from. And then a couple years ago, it was inverse. Like one pair could not be stopped. It was just constant. Here's an egg. Here's an egg. Here's an egg. So I'm still learning, and unfortunately, I'll have to pass that on to a friend for a couple years to kind of help build that knowledge up too, until I can get them back. But um, yeah, that's something that this year it looks like I've got a couple good eggs, so I'm feeling a little more optimistic that it might have just been, putting the colony together, the animals figuring out their new life here, because I would really like to be able to produce a couple more of these before just sort of not necessarily pausing my work with the colony for now, but I guess just to say that it was not a one-off fluke, so to speak. So
for sure. Yeah, no, they're just super cool. Like they're freaking awesome. Just like the Egyptians are cool. Like I wouldn't mind trying Egyptians, but up here there's only one guy breeding them, and they're $2,000 a piece. So and from what it sounds like, only males are kind of being released. So I'm not really sure that's a project I want to jump into yet until I see somebody start getting females, kind of thing. Obviously,
sure.
like I don't even know if they're like Egyptians are sex temperature dependent or not, but for some reason, some people have said that it's only been males, but I'm not a tortoise expert at all. But pancakes, there seems to be a handful of people up here producing them. There's a breeder in Manitoba that produces some Connexus and box turtles and stuff that my buddy gets stuff wholesale from to sell, and he's gotten a couple pancakes from them, and fantastic animals. Like it's like you see the pancakes and you're like, I probably get a little bit of a discount. I could I could maybe trade some stuff for this. But it's like now it's like okay, maybe when I move out there I can breed some stuff one year and kind of trade or buy them directly from the breeder and kind of cherry pick and see maybe if they know anybody else is breeding them, so I can get a few from them and get a few from somebody else and do the project correctly and try to maximize, because I don't think they're a long-lived species either.
Oh, pancakes or Egyptians not being long-lived.
Pancakes, but I've heard of Egyptians not being long-lived as well, but I'm not 100% sure at the pancakes. I more know the Egyptians only live 30 to 40 years, but
Yeah,
you
that's
can
about right for the
correct me on
pancakes.
that.
Oh, it's
Okay.
about right for both of them. Yeah. So sorry, I thought you meant like a decade or two. I was going to say, oh no, they can live longer. No,
Oh
you're
no,
right.
but
Yeah,
like for tortoises, right? Like you
yeah.
think they're
It's
gonna live 100 years, but the pancakes and Egyptians are ones that they, who knows? Maybe they don't live that long in the wild, or maybe naturally they only live a certain amount of time before they get eaten by something. But yeah, it's interesting how like a lot of other smaller tortoises, like the Russians and that, will live 50 to even 80 years, kind of thing, while the pancakes and Egyptians only seem to live to 30-ish, kind of
yeah.
thing. You have any questions, Dom?
Just listening, man. It's interesting. Don't get me wrong, but I messaged you there, but you haven't replied. I wanted to ask you: do you want to keep going on your turtle stock? Because I might just say my goodbyes because I work in 5 hours and I'm gonna die if I don't go to bed.
It's no good.
If
It's
if
all
you
it's
want to
it's all
continue,
good. We can probably end it pretty soon here, and
well,
maybe
I was gonna offer it to you. So
it,
if you wanted to keep
I,
going, we can keep going, and I'll jet out. If not, we can close it out
we can
eventually.
always have another show. There's hopefully
Yeah,
we'll
there we
do
go.
this to 500 episodes, and we can have him on in 6 months, just like everybody else we want to have on again, because we never seem to hit everything we want to hit, which is fantastic. Because that's how a
It's always
podcast
hard
should
anyway
work.
to get people to want to come back, or even to come for the first time, right? Some people it's just a schedule. It's a scheduling nightmare. They
Oh,
say
for
yes, I'm
sure.
going to come, but it's like, oh, I can only in the next 2 months at this time, and you're like, well, anyway,
Yeah.
the time
Well,
doesn't always work for
we
everyone.
got Ron St. Pierre for next weekend, so that'll be fun.
I just saw that, so
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so Ron St. Pierre for next weekend.
that should be good. And then we need to get Heather on too, because like she's the one that actually runs that operation, runs some ideas of stuff. But Heather's the one that does the nutrition and does the blue tongue, so it should be another fantastic topic. But I think Ron should be great. But yeah,
I find it every time I've listened to Ron, I find it really interesting how he talks about his ideas of how to market an animal in the mass, right? And that's what I find so interesting. How he'll like, I don't know. To me, that just amazes me. That should be interesting next week.
yeah, his systems of how he comes up with stuff is fantastic, right? Like he's not necessarily marketing. I think he fucking hates people, but but his
Don't we
ideas,
all?
but his ideas of how he's gonna. Okay, I need to set up 50 groups of these animals to breed right and keep them right and produce maximum effort. But I've also fucked up in the past, so I need to do all this correctly. And sometimes I mess up, and it is what it is, and we're gonna move on, right? Like I love that whole thing that he does. So yeah, it
Agreed.
should be great.
Uh, that being said, David, honestly, that was really, really interesting. I mean, everything about Diamond Python was awesome. The tortoise, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it
No,
was fine. I mean, nothing amazing, but the Diamond Python, I really appreciate that part of it. I'm just kidding.
no.
It was great. It was great. Honestly, great talking to you. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of
Sorry, I missed that last part. My internet's
you?
starting to spaz out.
If people want to get a hold of you, Facebook, Instagram, any handles?
Oh yeah, you
Are
can
you,
find me on Instagram at Kelley Herpetological. It's KELLEY_herpetological. Um, yeah, I'm a little busy this winter, but if you send me a question, I promise you, I can get to it. If I do not respond, please just spam me. I will eventually remember. So yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate. I really glad to have the opportunity to talk
Awesome.
Diamond Python with
Thank
you
you,
guys.
David. I'm definitely glad I got you on because I've listened to you on the other 4 or 5 podcasts you've been on, and it's always great to hear. We didn't even talk about zebra skinks or anything, but yeah, I think this will go down fantastic, and we can always talk to you in the future. Because I rang up that falconry thing at the beginning because I knew that'd be some weird, fun topic to start off on because that was the way you started off with Adam about last year. So that was always fun to hear.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Awesome.
definitely crazy interesting. It's something I've always wanted to do, like on my own outside of the zoo, but I don't think it'll ever happen. Um, if anybody wants to reach out to Michael, Michael Gillian at Facebook. No, Michael Gillian at no, it's just Michael Gillian right on Facebook. There's
Michael Gillen
just
at
your name.
Facebook and
There you go. I don't even say your
underscore
name right.
Michael Gillen in the middle on Instagram. It's basically the same thing. Yeah,
There you
David, if
go.
you want to hold on for a minute after we close out the show, then hopefully it'll upload pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah, not a problem.
Perfect. And everybody, thanks for listening. If you're on YouTube, just subscribe. It helps. If you are listening to the show live, we'll just repeat it. We do the show live, usually to all the guests that want to go live, but this episode will only be released in 1 week on any of the podcasts or any wherever you listen to it. So if you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Buzzsprouts, wherever it is, just subscribe, and we appreciate it. And to everybody, Have a great night, and we'll see you next week with Ron St. Pierre, and after that, our Christmas special, which should be a lot of fun. All right, guys, have a good night. Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, guys.